At my graduation party, my mom stood up and said, "Since I paid for your education, you owe me half of your salary forever." I thought it was a joke and laughed, but then she handed me a contract. My dad's lawyer stepped forward and said, "Actually, that's not how this works." The whole room went silent. The party was supposed to be fun, but it turned into the craziest moment of my life. I had just thanked everyone for coming and was feeling great about finishing college. Then my mom stood in the middle of the living room, holding a glass of wine, and said loudly, "Since I pay for your education, you owe me half your salary forever." I laughed because I thought she was kidding. I mean, who says that at their kid's graduation party? But she was serious. She pulled a folder out of her bag and handed it to me like she was collecting a debt. "You can laugh," she said sweetly but firmly, "but I had this contract made a while ago. It's legally binding." I opened the folder, still thinking this couldn't be real. Inside was a contract. My hands started shaking. People around me looked uncomfortable. I couldn't believe it. What kind of parent does this? Before I could even react, my dad, who had been standing quietly with his arms crossed, gestured to his lawyer. That's when everything changed. The room was so quiet I could hear someone's ice clinking in their drink. I looked at the contract again. It listed every expense she had paid for: tuition, housing, food, even gas money. And at the end, there was a line that made me feel sick. If I didn't sign, she could take legal action against me for not paying her back. I felt my stomach drop. She never said this was a loan. I'd asked her many times if she was okay paying for college, and every time she'd smile and say, "It's an investment in your future." Now she was acting like this was all planned and normal. "Mom," I said, trying to stay calm, "you never told me this was a loan." She tilted her head and pretended to be surprised. "Oh, sweetie, of course it was. You didn't think I was just giving you that money, did you?" She laughed like it was a joke and looked around for support. "You're an adult now. Adults pay their debts." I stared at her, my heart racing. Then my dad finally spoke up from the corner of the room. "Well, actually," he said, nodding at the lawyer beside him, "that's not how this works." Everyone looked at him. His lawyer, a well-dressed man with gray hair, stepped forward and held out his own folder. "Miss Carter," the lawyer said seriously, looking at my mom, "we heard about your contract a few weeks ago, and after reviewing it, I need to explain something to your son before he makes any decisions." I looked at my dad, feeling confused, but my mom was suddenly very quiet. The lawyer opened his folder and said, "First of all, you can't legally ask for payment without a signed agreement made before the tuition was paid. Since there's no contract or signed document proving this was a loan, your claim is not valid." My mom blinked. "Excuse me?" The lawyer kept going. "Second, even if this was a loan, verbal agreements between parents and children about financial help usually don't hold up in court, especially when there's clear proof the money was given without expecting repayment." I felt my heart race. Dad knew. He had seen this coming and was ready for it. My mom's face turned angry. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "I have proof. I have emails, text messages. I've read them." The lawyer cut her off smoothly. "And none of them say your son had to pay you back. In fact, there are several messages where you reassure him you're paying for everything as a parent, not as a lender." Her face went pale. My dad crossed his arms. "So," he said, "if you really want to take this to court, we can. But I don't think you'll like how that turns out." The room was so tense it felt hard to breathe. My mom opened her mouth but then shut it. She looked around and realized everyone had just seen what happened. Her friends, coworkers, our family, they all saw her try to trap me with a contract, only to be stopped immediately. I could see panic in her eyes. She thought she'd pressure me into signing out of embarrassment. She didn't expect Dad to be prepared. But she wasn't giving up. "Oh, I see how it is," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" She turned to me, smiling but clearly furious. "You think you can just take everything from me and walk away?" I shook my head. "Mom, I never took anything from you. You offered." Her face twisted with rage. "You are so ungrateful," she spat. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me?" She turned to the crowd, her hands shaking. "I raised this child alone. I worked 2 jobs. I sacrificed so much for him." My dad scoffed. "You had full custody and wouldn't let me help. Don't pretend you did this all by yourself." The room went completely silent. That's when it hit me. This wasn't really about money. It was about control. My mom had always used money to keep control over me, making me feel like I owed her something. Now that I was finally done with college and ready to live my own life, she was trying to trap me again. But she was losing. Her hands balled into fists. She looked at me one last time and hissed, "You'll regret this." Before I could respond, she grabbed her purse and stormed out of the party. The door slammed and suddenly my legs felt weak. My dad put a hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" he asked. I let out a shaky breath. "I don't know." He gave me a small, understanding smile. "Don't worry, this isn't over." And he was right, because my mom, she wasn't done. And the next thing she did, it was even worse. 2 weeks later, it all blew up again. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from a lawyer. At first, I thought it was junk mail. But when I saw the address, my stomach dropped. It was a demand letter from a lawyer my mom hired, saying I owed her $176,000 for all the money she spent on my education and other costs. If I didn't pay, she was going to sue me. I stared at the letter, barely able to breathe. She actually did it. She really went to a lawyer and tried to take me to court. I called my dad right away. When he saw the letter, he didn't even look surprised. "I figured she'd try something like this," he said, shaking his head. "She doesn't know when to stop." Then his lawyer stepped in. "She doesn't have a case," the lawyer told me. "But if she's serious about dragging this to court, we need to respond in a way that makes sure she never tries this again." I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" The lawyer gave me a small, confident smile. "We're not just going to defend you," he said. "We're going to fight back." My dad had mostly stayed quiet during my childhood. He and my mom had a messy divorce when I was little, and she made sure I stayed away from him. She told me he didn't care about me. She said he never wanted to help and that she had to do everything alone. But that was a lie. When we started preparing our case, my dad showed me bank statements, emails, and legal documents from years ago. Proof he had sent her thousands of dollars in child support and even tried to help pay for my education. But every time she turned him down. She wanted full control over me. If he helped, she couldn't say, "I did all of this by myself." And now she was trying to force money out of me that she refused to take from my dad. When her lawsuit officially went to court, my dad's lawyer didn't just defend me. He filed a counterclaim. We sued her for fraud, emotional distress, and misusing money. During our investigation, we found something that made my blood run cold. My mom hadn't even spent all the money she claimed was for my education. Yes, she paid my tuition, but the numbers didn't add up. Over those 4 years, she had taken out extra student loans in my name, loans I never even knew about, and those loans were way more than my tuition actually cost. She had been keeping the extra money for herself. When we presented the evidence in court, everything fell apart for her. The case dragged on for months, but in the end she lost. Not only did the judge throw out her case against me, but she was also ordered to pay back all the fake loans she took out in my name. She tried to argue, she even cried, but the evidence was clear. And when the judge gave the final decision, she looked at me with pure hatred. "This is your fault," she hissed. "You betrayed me." I looked back at her, finally seeing her for who she really was. "You did this to yourself," I said. After that, she went completely off the rails. She tried calling and texting me, begging me to forgive her. When that didn't work, she started telling everyone I was a selfish, ungrateful son who had sued his own mother. She told her friends, family, even my old teachers. But the truth was out. No one believed her anymore. Her reputation was ruined. Her finances were a disaster. She tried to appeal the case, but she didn't have the money for another lawyer. And me? I walked away. I was finally free from guilt, from manipulation, from the debt trap she tried to pull me into. And for the first time, I felt like I could finally breathe. She lost everything. Not just the case, but her reputation and her money. But even after all that, she still couldn't let it go, because people like her don't stop until they've lost everything. A few months after the lawsuit, I got a call from a number I didn't know. I let it go to voicemail. When I checked the message, my stomach dropped. It was my mom. Her voice sounded shaky and desperate. "Hey, sweetie. I know things have been rough between us, but I really need to talk to you. It's important." I didn't call her back. A week later, she showed up at my job. I was working my first real job after college, finally starting to get my life together. And there she was, standing in the lobby like she had every right to be there. My stomach sank. I pulled my manager aside and explained everything. Within minutes, security escorted her out. That same night, she sent me an email with the subject, "Please read." I almost ignored it, but I was curious. The email was long, filled with guilt-tripping and emotional manipulation. She said the lawsuit had ruined her life. She lost her job because people found out what she did. She was in debt and couldn't afford her rent. And then came the real reason for the email. She wanted me to help her with money. I laughed out loud. After everything she put me through, trying to trap me in debt forever, now she wanted me to bail her out. She ended the email with, "You owe me, after everything I've done for you." But I didn't owe her anything. I ignored her email, but my dad had a better idea. We still had one last move to make. While my mom was so focused on trying to get money from me, she forgot one big thing: the fake loan she took out in my name. That was a federal crime. She was so desperate to make people believe I was the bad guy that she kept talking about the case to anyone who would listen. And someone reported her. I don't know who did it, but one day my dad called me. "She's been arrested," he said. She had lied on loan documents under my name. That's identity theft. And the government? They don't play around with that. She was charged with fraud and identity theft, and because the amount of money was so big, she was facing real jail time. I didn't go to the trial. I didn't need to. She called me again from jail, trying to make me feel bad. I let it go to voicemail. This time, I didn't even bother listening. She went to jail, not for long, but long enough to make her life even worse. She lost her house, her job, and everything she had tried to control. And me? I moved on. I built a life for myself, free from her. No guilt, no manipulation, no unfair expectations. Now years later, she's just a bad memory, and I finally have what she never wanted me to have. Freedom.
The moment I pulled out that unmarked envelope from the pile of mail, a chill ran down my spine. There was no return address, just my name scrawled in an unfamiliar handwriting. My instincts told me to ignore it, to toss it aside like any other piece of junk mail. But something compelled me to slip a finger under the flap and tear it open. "Your husband is lying to you." Those 5 words hit me like a freight train. My heart pounded as I unfolded the letter with shaking hands. More accusations leapt off the page. Details about Dexter's supposed infidelity, claims about secret meetings and hotel rendezvous. "Wake up, Renata. The truth is closer than you think." I wanted to believe this was all some cruel prank. But then my eyes landed on the phone, tucked into the envelope, a blurry image of Dexter embracing another woman. My mind whirled as I studied every pixel, desperately looking for an explanation, something to disprove what I was seeing. "Oh my God, what is this?" Dexter's voice made me jump. I spun around, the letter crinkling in my tightened grip. He had just walked through the front door after another late night at his tech startup. His eyes widened when he saw what was in my hands. "It's nothing, just some stupid joke mail," I lied, my voice trembling. He reached for the letter, but I pulled it away protectively. "Let me see." I said, "It's nothing," I snapped. A dozen emotions battled within me: shock, disbelief, anger, but mostly a nagging fear that there may be some truth behind these horrific accusations. Dexter's brow furrowed with concern. "Renata, you know I would never cheat on you. After everything we've been through together, how could you even think that?" My mind rewound to the struggles we'd endured over the years, the miscarriages, the financial hardships, the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, questioning if we'd ever catch a break. Through it all, Dexter had been my rock, my shelter against the cruel world. "You're right," I whispered, forcing a nod. I'm overreacting." He pulled me into a reassuring embrace, his familiar warmth providing a momentary blanket of comfort. But I couldn't shake the feeling that things had somehow shifted between us. As I hugged him back, something felt off. That night, long after Dexter had fallen asleep, I stared at the crinkled letter and grainy photo on my nightstand. My husband, my loving, loyal husband whom I'd trusted without question, looked like a complete stranger in that damning image. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Over the next few weeks, I became a master of deception. I watched Dexter's every move, studiously cataloging any suspicious behavior while putting on an Oscar-worthy act that everything was normal. and there was plenty that seemed off. The long hours at his startup began stretching into the late evenings and weekends. He started placing his phone face down whenever I entered the room, quickly minimizing whatever was on the screen. And then there were the random phone calls he'd take in hushed tones, retreating to another room for privacy. "Everything okay?" I'd ask when he returned, playing dumb. "Yeah, just work stuff," he'd mutter dismissively. On the nights he did make it home for dinner, Dexter seemed distracted, his mind clearly elsewhere. I'd watch him from across the table, studying the man I used to know like the back of my hand, now a complete enigma to me. One night, after another of his extended Saturdays at the office, enough was enough. As Dexter slipped out the front door yet again, I grabbed my coat and followed a safe distance behind. I tailed him through downtown, watching as he met up with a slim brunette outside a trendy bar. She greeted him with a tight hug and a kiss on the lips. My heart shattered into a million pieces. So it was true. The letter, the rumors, all of it. Dexter, my husband of 8 years, the one man I thought I could trust without doubt, was lying to me. And not just with his words, but with his body too. I wanted to confront them both right then and there, to rush up and unleash the unbridled fury and anguish consuming me from the inside out. But I didn't. I watched, seething in silence, as Dexter and his mistress slipped inside the bar hand in hand. Something inside me had snapped. The veil of blissful ignorance had been brutally torn away. My faith, my love, my life with Dexter, all built on lies. When he finally skulked home in the early morning hours, I was waiting. My face a stoic mask, the letter clutched in my hand. "Where were you?" I asked, point blank. Dexter looked caught off guard, like a kid with his hand trapped in the cookie jar. "I told you I had to work late at." "Don't lie to me." I hurled the crumpled letter at his feet. "I know about the woman. I saw you with her." A smirk crept across his lips, one I didn't recognize, like he had been waiting for this very moment. "So you finally figured it out, about damn time." My palm connected with his cheek before I could stop it. But Dexter didn't even flinch, that same smug look plastered across his face. "Who is she?" I demanded through gritted teeth. "How long has this been going on? Does it really matter?" He gave a casual shrug. "You know why people cheat, Renata? Because they've given up. On their partner, on the relationship, on themselves." His cruel words sliced me to the core. The man I loved was gone, replaced by this vile, unrecognizable monster. "You're right," I said, struggling to maintain my composure. "I did give up. On you." Turning on my heel, I stormed off to the guest bedroom and slammed the door behind me. The hurt and anger was like a raging inferno inside me now. But I wouldn't let it consume me. Not yet. I would harness that fire, let it fuel my determination, my hatred. And then, once I had the truth, the whole truth, I would take everything away from Dexter Wade. He thought he had given up on me. Well, now the gloves were off, and he was about to see how that mistake would cost him everything. "You're being ridiculous," Dexter scoffed, throwing his hands up dismissively. "This is all just a misunderstanding." I glared at him, clutching the damning letter in my trembling hands. "A misunderstanding? You were caught red-handed with another woman." "I can explain." "Explain what?" I snapped. "How you've been lying to me for God knows how long, how you betrayed my trust in the most unforgivable way." Dexter opened his mouth to respond, but I cut him off. "No, I don't want to hear any more of your pathetic excuses." His expression hardened into that infuriatingly smug look I had come to loathe. In that moment, he was a total stranger to me, worlds apart from the caring, devoted husband I thought I had married. "You're overreacting," he said coldly. "Women always do with these things." I recoiled like I'd been slapped. "What did you just say to me?" Dexter simply shrugged, seemingly relishing my shock and outrage. It was like he was baiting me, poking the bear just to get a reaction. Well, two could play at that game. If he wanted to match wits and see who could stoop lower, I would oblige him. Mustering all my strength, I finally regained my voice. "You're right, you deserve a chance to explain yourself." I forced a sickly sweet smile. "Starting with why you've been deleting all your messages with this woman." Dexter visibly tensed up at my implication of having proof. Good, let him squirm for once. "You've been going through my phone?" His cheeks flushed red with anger. I nodded innocently. "Among other things." Holding up a hand, I started ticking off examples. having your car tracked, logging into your email, checking your credit card statements. His jaw clenched and those telltale veins bulged in his neck, the dead giveaway that he was enraged. Still, Dexter tried his best to appear calm and in control. You've completely lost it, do you know that? This obsessive jealousy, it's unhealthy. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Jealousy? That's just the latest in your sad litany of excuses, isn't it? My voice dripped with venom as I took a step closer, glaring right into his traitorous eyes. The truth is, I know everything, Dexter. I have evidence of your affair with Marla Jennings. All your emails, text messages, credit card statements for your dirty little hotel hookups. I paused to let that bombshell sink in before delivering the killing blow. Hell, I even made copies of the disgusting selfies you two would send each other. The blood drained from Dexter's face as the truth of my words hit him. Gone was his arrogance, his feigned superiority. He shrank back, finally realizing he was naked and exposed. How? Was all he could choke out. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? I gave a harsh, humorless laugh. That I wouldn't fight for the life you ripped apart? That familiar vein in his neck throbbed furiously now. I could practically see the gears turning, his mind scrambling for an escape hatch, any excuse, any lie that might spare him from the reckoning he deserved. But it was too damn late. You made your bed, Dexter, I growled, feeling a small sense of victory at holding all the cards for once. No more lies, no more deceptions. It's time to face the consequences. I turned and stormed out of the room before he could utter another word of protest. Let him sit and stew in his guilt and shame for once. From here on out, I made the rules. I would dictate every calculated move, and Dexter would soon realize that hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. The words burned like acid as they left my mouth. Marla Jennings? You've been sleeping with Marla? My so-called friend visibly recoiled, her face drained of all color. I knew I had her cornered. The evidence was irrefutable. Renata, I don't know what to say. Marla's voice trembled as tears welled up in her eyes. A flicker of pity flashed through me before being promptly extinguished by my burning rage. Don't bother. I shoved a manila envelope into her hands, printouts of emails, texts, and other proof of her torrid affair with my husband. The truth is all right here, in breathtaking detail. The lies, the deception, the hotel receipts. My lip curled with disgust. Oh, and my personal favorite, those X-rated selfies you two would send each other. Real classy stuff. Shame and mortification washed over Marla's face as she feebly thumbed through the incriminating evidence. She opened and closed her mouth wordlessly, any excuse or justification catching in her throat. I could have taken some satisfaction in her discomfort and humiliation. But in that moment, I only felt a slicing betrayal, not just from Dexter, but from someone I considered practically a sister. We shared everything, from joys and heartbreaks to hopes and dreams for the future. And yet she had zero qualms about backstabbing me in the most unforgivable way. So much for loyalty. So much for our friendship meaning anything. How could you do this to me? I demanded through clenched teeth, fighting back hot tears of hurt and fury. After everything we've been through together, everything I confided in you about my struggles with Dexter. Marla swallowed hard, her expression an uncomfortable blend of shame and defiance. I never meant to hurt you, Renata. You have to believe me. Bullshit. The harshness of my own voice startled me. That's exactly what you intended to do, sneaking around behind my back, spreading your legs for my husband. It's not like that, she shot back, a sudden fire in her eyes. I love Dexter. He loves me. We made a real connection, something you couldn't understand. I recoiled, feeling like I'd been physically struck. A real connection? You're delusional. Marla shook her head adamantly. Dexter wanted to leave you. He told me all about your failing marriage and how miserable he was. He pursued me from the start. Of course he did. It was all becoming disgustingly clear now. Dexter's modus operandi of lies, deception, and avoidance of taking any responsibility. Marla was just another smoking gun in his trail of shattered trust and broken vows. Don't kid yourself, I spat. My husband is a coward and a pathological liar. It's all he knows. He manipulated you just as easily as he manipulated me. Tears streamed down Marla's face, smearing her makeup into an ugly mess. A sick part of me relished the sight. You're wrong, she croaked out weakly. We have something real. He loves me. The desperate, hollow look in her eyes confirmed my suspicions. She was nothing more than Dexter's latest victim, another conquest willingly ensnared by his false promises and smooth-talking mind games. Marla was pathetic. But Dexter, he was the true monster I needed to stop. Without another word, I pivoted and stormed away, my mind already strategizing the most fitting retribution. An eye for an eye, that's what he would get. And once this was all over, Dexter would finally understand the bone-deguish and humiliation he put me through. I would return that pain tenfold. The fury blazed within me, consuming any mercy or sympathy I once might have felt. Dexter had demolished everything, my love, my trust, and the future we had planned together. Now it was my turn to watch everything he cared about go up in glorious, well-deserved flames. I paced back and forth in my living room, hands trembling as I clutched the damning evidence of Dexter and Marla's affair. My mind was racing, formulating a plan to make them pay for their unforgivable betrayal. Exposing their sordid secrets wouldn't be enough. I wanted complete and utter devastation, to obliterate everything they'd worked towards, to leave them as empty and hollow as I felt. A delicious vengeance, retribution for the agonizing pain they'd put me through. With each calculated step, the scheme took shape. I'd strike fast and without mercy. Let the shockwave ripple through our entire social circle and professional networks. By the time I was done, Dexter and Marla's lives would be in smoking ruins. My phone buzzed, jarring me from my revenge-addled thoughts. A text from Dexter. "We need to talk." I smirked, picturing the desperation consuming him now that I finally held all the cards. Let him sweat it out a little longer. Several hours passed before I finally responded with two simple words. "Your office." When I arrived at Dexter's sleek tech startup, his assistant gave me an uneasy look but didn't protest as I breezed past her desk and into his corner office. He was hunched over his laptop, pinching the bridge of his nose like a man grappling with the weight of the world. "This is a professional environment," I announced coolly, making sure my voice carried. "So let's keep things professional, shall we?" Dexter flinched, clearly not expecting my detached bravado. When our eyes met, the pathetic resignation on his face almost made me smirk. Almost. "How could you do this to me?" His words were laced with quiet anguish. "To our marriage?" I arched an eyebrow incredulously. "Are you seriously asking me that question, after everything you've done?" "I never meant to hurt you," Dexter pleaded, attempting one of his charm offensives. But the act held no sway over me, not anymore. Things just got out of hand with Marla. Before I knew it, I was in too deep. Too deep. I fought back a scathing laugh at his paper-thin excuses. "You don't get to play the victim here, not after you systematically destroyed my ability to trust." My voice dripped with disdain. "Secrets, lies, cheating. That's all you know how to do, isn't it?" Pain flashed across his features, my verbal blows clearly landing. "Good. I made a mistake," he conceded hoarsely. "A horrible, unforgivable mistake. But you have to believe I never stopped loving you, Renata. You're everything to me." He reached across the desk in a pleading gesture, but I instinctively recoiled from his grasp like it was a venomous snake. "Save it," I hissed. "Your silver tongue stopped working on me a long time ago." This time, Dexter didn't try to mask the hurt etched across his face. He swallowed hard, seeming to accept that there was no coming back from this, no smooth talking his way out of the devastation he'd caused. And I was just getting started. "You want to know how this is going to play out?" I asked, keeping my tone, untarnished detachment. "First, I'm going to take this evidence of your affair with Marla." I tossed the manila envelope onto his desk with a dull thud. "And I'm going to share it with everyone. Our friends, your investors, current and prospective clients, the whole damn world if I have to." "And then?" he croaked out, eyes swimming with apprehensive dread. A slow, sinister smile crept across my lips. "Then you can kiss everything goodbye. Your company, your reputation, whatever sad delusions of happiness you had with Marla. All of it. You won't have a goddamn thing left to your name when I'm finished with you." Silence hung heavy over the room as Dexter absorbed the crushing weight of my vowed promise. His mouth opened and closed wordlessly like a fish gasping for air. I held his gaze unflinchingly, drinking in every agonizing moment as the first droplets of my vengeance began raining down upon him. "See you around," I muttered coolly, turning on my heel to leave. Or maybe not. The party was in full swing by the time I arrived, fashionably late. Laughter and the clink of champagne glasses filled the air as Dexter's friends and business associates mingled around the modern event space. I scanned the crowd until my eyes found my soon-to-be ex-husband holding court near the bar with his latest fling, Marla, draped all over him. They made for a perfectly punchable portrait of arrogance and entitlement, blissfully unaware of the reckoning that was coming. Taking a fortifying breath, I smoothed out the front of my red dress, chosen specifically for the occasion. Like crimson battle armor, striking and unignorable. This was my moment, after all. I crossed the sleek concrete floor with purposeful strides, briefly catching the eye of Dexter's assistant, Kelly. Her expression glazed over with trepidation, no doubt sensing the storm brewing behind my eyes. Smart girl. Renata, you made it! A fake, toothy grin stretched across Dexter's face as he lifted his glass towards me. We were starting to wonder if you'd show. And miss your big night? I matched his artificial cheeriness, turning it back on him with sickening sweetness. Wouldn't dream of it, dear. Marla's owlish gaze bounced back and forth between us like a spectator at a tennis match. I could practically see the worry gnawing away at her. The two of us making niceties through gritted teeth, the tension crackling like lightning about to strike. A small crowd had begun to gather around us, their interest clearly piqued by Dexter and I's impromptu reunion. Let them ogle and gossip like the privileged vultures they were. Their morbid curiosity was about to be satisfied. Well, I proclaimed loudly, forcing an exaggerated smile as I scanned the rapt faces surrounding us, I actually have a bit of an announcement to make. Dexter's bravado faltered as our eyes met again. My cold stare sent an unmistakable message that whatever came next would not be good. At least, not for him or his lover. Reaching into my clutch, I retrieved the sealed manila envelope that had been burning a hole through my purse lining for weeks. I held it aloft, letting everyone take in the suspicious package. You see, my dearest husband here has been keeping a few secrets. I paused to allow the confused murmurs to swell briefly before continuing. Intimate secrets he's been sharing with a very close friend. Half the room seemed oblivious while the other tensed, sensing the impending bombshell about to detonate in their midst. Dexter turned toward me with panic smeared across his features, any plea for mercy dying on his lips. No mercy would be shown this night. With a series of loud rips, I tore open the envelope and began pulling out its contents. Page after page of incriminating evidence of Dexter's torrid affair with Marla. Explicit text exchanges, scandalous photos, travel records, and receipts from their tawdry trysts. You see, while I've been home picking out baby names, Dexter's been picking out baby makers, I declared in a booming voice. And wouldn't you know, he chose the brightest bulb from our inner circle to stick it to. I threw the final few photos into the air, letting them flutter down like confetti across the speechless crowd and their horrified faces. Marla let out a strangled sob, frantically grasping at Dexter, as if he could somehow shield her from the nuclear fallout she'd been complicit in creating. You lying son of a bitch! Someone shouted in disbelief. The catcalls and mutters of disgust rolled through the stunned audience like a tidal wave. I stood there, back straight and chin high, reveling in the carnage as Dexter's world burned all around him. Finally, after weeks of meticulous planning, my revenge was complete. Spinning on my heel, I strode away from the wreckage, casting one last look over my shoulder at Dexter. The hollowed, haunted expression carving his features nearly made me crack a smile. I had warned him about the consequences of betraying me. Now he got to witness the pulverizing aftermath up close. Let him choke on the ashes of everything he'd so arrogantly squandered. His business, his status, his future with that two-faced snake Marla. It was all gone, vanished in a single glorious gasper. As for me, I was free, untethered from years of torment and anguish. Finally, at long last, the shackles of Dexter Walsh's lies had been undone. It was time to let the healing begin. The fallout was swift and merciless, exactly as I'd envisioned. Within days, the collapse of Dexter's carefully cultivated life was splattered across every gossip rag and tech blog in Seattle. The disgraced CEO, felled by his own tawdry affair and web of deceit that came unspooled so publicly. Good. Let them run those scandalous pictures and seedy text exchanges on a continuous loop for all I cared. The more reputational damage inflicted on Dexter, the better. Across town, the lawyers were circling like sharks, each enabler and business associate looking to distance themselves from the implosion of Dexter's startup. Major investors pulled funding. Longtime partners cut ties. In a matter of days, everything he'd spent years building disintegrated into a smoldering ruin of hubris and betrayal. I'd orchestrated the perfect demolition, the ultimate retribution against the man who had so callously tormented me with lies and infidelity for far too long. With each ticking update of Dexter's downward spiral, a grim smile crept across my lips. This was the justice I'd hungered for from that first vicious sting of betrayal. To see him stripped bare of every ill-gotten gain, every shred of arrogance and self-importance dismantled along with his sordid, depraved legacy. The real gut punch, though, came from the most unlikely of sources. Dexter's mistress turned accomplice in his own destruction. Marla had been uncharacteristically silent in the days following my explosive reveal, no doubt licking her wounds and grappling with the seismic embarrassment of her home-wrecking ways being thrust into the harsh spotlight. Once the initial shock faded, however, her near-feral self-preservation instincts kicked in. I was alerted of her publicity tour by a string of frantic texts from Dexter, each one more pathetic than the last. "She's lying. Everything Marla's saying, it's all lies. You have to stop her, Renata. She's out for blood." "I never wanted to hurt you. You were my world." I barely made it through his sniveling pleas before hurling my phone against the wall, cackling at his feeble, desperate attempts at salvaging what minuscule scraps of dignity he had left. Flipping on the TV, I was greeted by Marla's smug face on the screen, that familiar, self-satisfied sneer sketched across her features. The had certainly grown a pair now that the opportunity for vengeance had arisen. "Dexter made a lot of promises to me about leaving his wife and starting a new life together," she proclaimed to the salivating reporter. "He laid it on thick, talking about soulmates and true loves conquering all that garbage." I rolled my eyes at the cloying sentiment, knowing full well the slimy game Dexter played. He'd mastered the art of telling women exactly what they wanted to hear in order to get what he desired. "But it was all a ploy, you see," Marla continued. "Standard operating procedure for Dexter Walsh. The lies, the manipulation, the complete lack of conscience when it came to using people to get what he wanted." On the screen, she held up a sheaf of papers and photos that looked disturbingly similar to the package I'd used to expose their affair. "I have proof here of Dexter's countless indiscretions, records of the hotels, the emails, all the sordid details of how he betrayed his wife and took advantage of me. He's a selfish, dishonest coward who only cares about himself." The searing diatribe set my soul ablaze, every word piercing through me like a vindicating dagger's caress. At last, someone else could see and acknowledge Dexter for the venomous serpent he truly was. I leaned back and soaked in every lashing second of it. On the TV, Marla's face was contorted into a mask of white-hot fury, utterly unrestrained in her quest to obliterate whatever feeble existence Dexter may have reassembled. He'd played with fire one too many times, scorching both of us in ways that could never be forgiven nor forgotten. Now the burner was getting burned. A lifetime of transgressions finally catching up in one cataclysmic inferno of consequences. And I had a front-row seat to witness every glorious, well-deserved flame. "You've turned into something unrecognizable." Dexter's words hung heavy in the air, more indictment than observation. His eyes bored into me with a searing intensity, as if he could somehow will me into feeling an ounce of remorse or shame. I simply shrugged, impervious to his desperate pleas for absolution. "Maybe I'm just done playing the meek, subservient wife you thought you could walk all over." His face contorted with that all-too-familiar mix of rage and indignation. "Is that what you think? That I looked down on you, treated you like some second-class citizen?" Rolling my eyes, I shot back without missing a beat. "Your actions spoke louder than any of your lies or hollow apologies ever could, Dexter. You don't get to be the victim here. Not after everything you put me through." He opened his mouth to protest again, but I silenced him with a raised hand. "Save it. I'm done caring about your justifications or what delusions you've cooked up to absolve yourself of guilt." My voice was a razor's edge, daring him to challenge me further. "The papers have been signed, the given. It's over." Dexter's shoulders slumped in defeat. In that moment, He looked every bit the haunted, broken husk of a man his actions had reduced him to. Good. Let him marinate in the consequences he so richly deserved. I turned on my heel, leaving him to stew in the wreckage of his ruined life. Outside, the crisp spring air filled my lungs, reinvigorating and purifying with each deep breath. After months of anguish and despair, the shackles had finally been cast off. Dexter no longer had any hold over me or the power to inflict any more damage. His humiliating downfall and loss of reputation were the ultimate form of recompense, a scorching case of karma come full circle. In the coming days and weeks, I focused on rebuilding, renovating the house to depict my fresh start, cleansing every last remnant of Dexter's stain from the home we'd once shared. Our twisted marriage had been corrosive, near fatal to my sense of self-worth and identity. But now, alone and unshackled by his toxic influence, I was reclaiming it all. My friends and family rallied around me, offering sympathies and support, though I waved them off with polite yet firm dismissals. I didn't need their pity. What I'd done was an act of self-preservation, a protective right to purge myself of Dexter's miasmic presence in my life once and for all. In time, the calls from reporters and paparazzi grew less frequent as my role in Dexter's spectacular downfall became old news, eclipsed by fresh scandals and salacious stories. My name faded from the spotlight just as I preferred it, quietly, anonymously receding into the background as an unassuming graphic designer once again. Dexter, on the other hand, would never have that privilege, not after the way his personal depravities had been laid startlingly bare before the world. Disgraced, destitute, and most unforgivably alone. Deserted by his fair-weather friends and opportunistic leeches the moment his status and wealth evaporated. Only Marla remained, and even her continued involvement was undoubtedly self-serving, a final act of vengeance before disappearing into oblivion as well. 6 months after our divorce was finalized, I received a letter, an unsigned, handwritten plea for forgiveness and understanding. Even without a name attached, I recognized Dexter's distinctive scrawl immediately, that same elegant penmanship which had once professed eternal devotion and fidelity, until his pretty words curdled into lies and infidelity. I didn't bother opening the letter, merely tossed it into the crackling fireplace and watched the pages curl and blacken as the carefully inked epithets turned to ashes. No more words, rationalizations, or empty promises. Dexter had gambled everything for his tawdry indiscretions, and the house had folded around him. He was the architect of his own devastation and karmic reckoning. All that was left for me was to let the purifying flames run their course, scouring away the last vestiges of his poisonous influence over me. From those smoldering embers I would be born anew, emboldened, resilient, and finally free. The rest of my life was awaiting, full of infinite possibilities, uncompromised by Dexter's shadow, and I had no intentions of looking back any longer. I stared at the small, crumpled envelope in my hand, disbelief etching every line of my face. My niece, Emma, had innocently handed it to me, saying it was from Grandma. Why the secrecy? I glanced at the clock. It was almost time for Emma to leave. "Thanks, sweetie," I said, tucking the envelope into my pocket as I heard my sister's car pull up outside. After a warm goodbye, I closed the door, the sound echoing in the empty hallway. My name is Avery Sullivan. At 35, I had carved out a respectable career in marketing, leading a team in a bustling firm downtown. Life, for the most part, seemed comfortably predictable. That is until Nolan, my husband of 6 years, began acting oddly. Returning to the living room, I settled on the couch, the envelope now burning a hole in my pocket. With a deep breath, I tore it open. The words scrawled across the paper were simple, yet earth-shattering. "Avery, watch Nolan closely. Things aren't as they seem." I frowned. Nolan, my carefree, often irresponsible husband, had his quirks, but what did Mom mean? Our marriage wasn't perfect, but it wasn't a disaster either. Since meeting Nolan at a mutual friend's gallery opening, life had been a whirlwind. His spontaneity was infectious, his disregard for convention charming in its own way. We married within a year, a decision that felt right at the time. But now doubt crept in, fueled by Mom's cryptic warning. The past few months had seen Nolan more secretive, his phone always on silent, his late-night work sessions more frequent. I had attributed it to his job at the tech startup, but Mom's note made me question everything. I decided to confront him. As I stood, a key turned in the lock, and Nolan entered, his face tired but smiling. "Hey, Avery, sorry I'm late. Got caught up at work," he said, shrugging off his coat. I watched him, a storm of emotions brewing inside me. The perfect opportunity to address my growing suspicions had just walked through the door. "Nolan, we need to talk," I began, my voice steady but tinged with an edge. He looked up, surprised. "Sure, what's up?" "It's about us, about your recent behavior." "I'm worried," I said, clutching the now crumpled envelope. Nolan's expression shifted, a flicker of something I couldn't quite place crossing his face. "Avery, His words trailed off as his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, a visible tension settling over him. "I need to take this. We'll talk later, okay?" I nodded, frustration simmering. As he stepped into the other room, I realized the confrontation would have to wait. But then, a sharp pain shot through my chest. Nolan collapsed, clutching his left arm, his face contorted in agony. "Nolan," I rushed to him, my heart pounding. In that moment, all anger and suspicion evaporated, replaced by sheer panic. As I dialed 911, my mind raced. What was happening? Was this related to the secrets he was keeping? The questions swirled, but one thing was clear. Nolan's life hung in the balance, and with it the truth I was desperate to uncover. As the ambulance siren faded into the distance, I sat alone in the quiet room. The envelope lay forgotten on the floor, its message a haunting echo of the chaos that had just unfolded. The hospital's sterile walls did nothing to ease the turmoil churning inside me. Nolan lay in his bed, a maze of tubes and monitors surrounding him. The doctor had said it was a mild heart attack, but he was stable. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived, overshadowed by the growing web of suspicion. As Nolan slept, I couldn't help but replay our last conversation. The phone call, his sudden collapse, it felt like pieces of a puzzle I couldn't solve. Over the next few days, I decided to dig deeper. Nolan's phone, usually guarded like a treasure, lay unattended on the nightstand. My hands trembled as I picked it up, the password screen glaring at me. I tried his birthday, nothing. Then, on a hunch, I typed in our anniversary date. It clicked open. The texts were damning. Flirtatious exchanges, plans to meet, all with someone named Clara. My heart pounded as I scrolled through message after message, each word a dagger. I confronted Nolan the next day. His initial shock quickly turned to defensiveness. "Avery, it's not what you think," he stammered, trying to sit up. "Not what I think. Nolan, you're having an affair." My voice cracked, anger and hurt warring within me. He sighed, his eyes avoiding mine. "It was a mistake, Avery. I never meant to hurt you." "Mistake? How long has this been going on?" I demanded, fighting back tears. "A few months," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. I stood there, reeling from his confession. The lies, the deceit, it was overwhelming. I needed air, space to think. Without another word, I left the room, Nolan's pleas fading behind me. The next few days were a blur. The evidence was undeniable, but I struggled with what to do. Our marriage, once a source of joy, now felt like a sham. As I sat in the hospital cafeteria, my phone buzzed. It was my sister. "How's Nolan?" she asked, concern lacing her voice. "He's stable," I replied, my voice hollow. "And you? You sound off." I hesitated, then the words tumbled out. "He's been having an affair, Jess, with someone named Clara." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Oh, Avery, I'm so sorry." I nodded, even though she couldn't see. "I don't know what to do. I feel so betrayed." "Avery, listen to me," Jess said firmly. "You need to think about yourself now. Nolan made his choice. It's time you made yours." Her words struck a chord. Jess was right. Nolan had made his choice, and now it was my turn. As I hung up, a new resolve settled within me. Nolan's deceit had shattered our marriage, but I wouldn't let it break me. It was time for retribution, time to make Nolan face the consequences of his actions. I returned to Nolan's room, my steps determined. He looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. "Avery, No, Nolan. It's my turn to speak. Your affair, your lies, it's over. We're over." His face crumpled, but I didn't waver. This was just the beginning. Nolan would soon learn the true cost of his betrayal. In the days following my declaration, Nolan's attempts at reconciliation became more desperate, but the trust was shattered. His words fell on deaf ears. I was determined to unearth the extent of his deception. I began by delving into our finances. Nolan had always been vague about money, but now every statement, every transaction held potential clues. The deeper I dug, the more alarming the revelations. Secret credit cards, unpaid bills, and a trail of expenses that led straight to Clara. Nolan's hospital stay extended due to complications, giving me more time to investigate. Clara, it turned out, was the daughter of a local pharmacist known in our community. The brazenness of it all left me reeling. They hadn't just crossed paths, they had woven a web of lies right under my nose. One evening, as I sifted through bank statements, my phone rang. It was Nolan's doctor, asking me to come to the hospital immediately. "It's urgent," he said, his tone grave. Rushing to the hospital, 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind, but nothing could have prepared me for what awaited. Nolan was conscious, looking more haggard than ever. But it was the doctor's words that echoed in my ears. "Mrs. Sullivan, your husband's condition is more serious than we thought. He's had a secondary complication, which has resulted in partial paralysis." Paralysis. The word hung in the air, heavy and ominous. I stared at Nolan, searching for any sign of deceit. But his eyes, usually so full of cunning, now reflected fear and uncertainty. Nolan reached out with his functioning hand, his voice barely a whisper. "Avery, please." "I need you." I recoiled, the magnitude of his betrayal still fresh. "Need me? Like you needed Clara?" He flinched, the guilt written all over his face. "Avery, I made a mistake, but I'm paying for it, can't you see?" His plea was pathetic, a stark contrast to the confident, carefree man I had married. But there was no sympathy in me, only a burning desire for justice. "You made your bed, Nolan. Now lie in it," I said, my voice cold. As I turned to leave, Nolan's doctor pulled me aside. "Mrs. Sullivan, I understand this is difficult, but your husband requires care now more than ever." His words were a reminder of the complexity of my situation. Nolan, despite his faults, was now vulnerable, dependent. It was a cruel twist of fate, one that left me torn between my desire for revenge and a sense of duty. The drive home was a blur. My mind wrestled with the doctor's words and Nolan's newfound helplessness. It was a perverse form of karma, but it also opened a door. A door to a revenge that was subtle, yet powerful. I arrived home to an empty, silent house. The walls seemed to echo with the remnants of a life that once was. But within that silence, a plan began to form. Nolan's betrayal had cost him more than he realized. Now, it was time for him to understand the true price of his actions. A price that I would dictate, in a game where I held all the cards. The sterile smell of the hospital mingled with the scent of betrayal as I walked through its corridors. Nolan's condition had stabilized, but the paralysis remained. He looked up as I entered, a mix of hope and fear in his eyes. "Avery, I didn't expect you to come back," he murmured, his voice tinged with surprise. "I'm not here for pleasantries, Nolan. I'm here to settle things," I replied, my tone icy. Nolan attempted a weak smile, but it faltered. "I know I've messed up, but this paralysis, it's karma, isn't it?" "Karma? No, Nolan. This is just the beginning," I said, leaning in. "You've played your games, now it's my turn." His eyes widened, the realization of my intentions dawning on him. "Avery, what are you planning?" "That's for me to know. But trust me, you'll pay for every lie, every deceit." I could see the fear creeping into his eyes, a fear that gave me a sense of power, a taste of revenge. As I turned to leave, a woman entered the room. Clara. She looked at me, her eyes betraying a flicker of guilt. "Clara, this is my wife, Avery," Nolan introduced us, his voice strained. "We've met," I said, my gaze fixed on Clara. "I know all about your little affair." Clara's face flushed, a mix of embarrassment and defiance. "Nolan and we didn't mean to hurt you." "Hurt me? Oh, you've done much more than that, and now you'll both see the consequences," I said, my voice steely. Nolan interjected. "Avery, please, let's talk about this." "There's nothing left to talk about," I replied. "You've made your bed, and now you'll lie in it, both of you." With that, I left them in the room, their stunned silence a satisfying conclusion to the encounter. The game had changed. Nolan and Clara were no longer the players. They were the pawns. As I walked away, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my sister Jess. "Avery, we need to talk. I've found out something about Nolan." Curiosity piqued. I quickened my pace. Jess had always been resourceful, and if she had uncovered something new, it could be another piece in my revenge plan. We met at a nearby cafe, the bustle around us a stark contrast to the tension between us. "What did you find out?" I asked, eager yet apprehensive. Jess leaned in, her voice low. "Nolan's accident wasn't just a coincidence. He was with Clara when it happened. The revelation hit me like a wave. The accident, the paralysis, it was all intertwined with his affair. And there's more, Jess continued. I've heard rumors that Nolan was planning to leave you, start a new life with Clara. Anger and betrayal churned within me, fueling my resolve. Nolan's deception ran deeper than I imagined. Thank you, Jess, I said, my mind racing with possibilities. This changes everything. As I left the cafe, a plan formed in my mind. Nolan and Clara thought they could rewrite the narrative, but I was the author of this story, and I would ensure it had a fitting end. Back home, the silence was deafening. It gave me space to think, to plan. Nolan's betrayal, now interwoven with his paralysis, had complicated things, but it also gave me an unexpected edge. The next day, I visited Nolan again. This time, my approach was different, more calculated. Nolan, I've been thinking, I started, feigning a tone of reconciliation. Maybe we can work things out, start afresh. He looked at me, hope flickering in his eyes. Really, Avery? I would love that. But first, I need honesty, total honesty, I said firmly. Nolan nodded eagerly. Anything, Avery, I swear. I leaned in closer. Tell me about the accident, the whole truth. He hesitated, then began. Clara and I were driving back from a weekend away. I lost control of the car. That's how the accident happened. I kept my expression neutral, hiding the storm inside. And Clara? She was fine. Just some minor bruises, he replied, his voice faltering. I stood up, my resolve hardening. Thank you for being honest, Nolan. As I left the room, Nolan's eyes followed me, filled with a mix of relief and confusion. Back home, I started putting my plan into action. I hired a private investigator, tasking him with digging deeper into Nolan's affair and the accident. The truth was my weapon, and I intended to wield it with precision. A few days later, the investigator provided his report. It was worse than I thought. Not only had Nolan been with Clara during the accident, but he had also been planning to leave me, to start anew with her. Fueled by this newfound information, I visited Nolan again, this time with a purpose. Nolan, I know about your plans with Clara, I said, watching him closely. His face paled. Avery, it's not like that. Don't insult my intelligence, I snapped. You were planning to abandon me, to start a life with her. Nolan's eyes darted around the room, a trapped animal looking for escape. Avery, please let me explain. No more lies, Nolan. I've heard enough, I said, cutting him off. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to divorce, and you're going to agree to my terms. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He knew he was cornered. As for Clara, she'll learn the truth. All of it. Your deceit, your plans, everything. Nolan's face crumpled. You wouldn't. Watch me, I said, my voice cold as ice. I left him there, his pleas echoing behind me. The tables had turned. Nolan, once the manipulator, was now at my mercy, and I had no intention of letting him off easy. The game of deception he had played was over. Now it was time for retribution, and I was ready to claim my victory. The day I filed for divorce felt like stepping into a new era. Armed with the truth and a resolve of steel, I walked into Nolan's hospital room with the divorce papers. Nolan, these are the divorce papers, I announced, placing them on the bedside table. He looked at them, his face a mask of disbelief. You're serious about this? Deadly serious, I replied. You've played me for a fool long enough. Nolan's eyes searched mine, looking for a hint of mercy. Avery, can't we talk about this? Maybe go to counseling, try to... No, Nolan, there's nothing left to salvage, I cut him off. You've made your choices, and now you live with them. He sighed, a defeated man. What do you want, Avery? Everything, I said bluntly. The house, the savings, and no alimony for you. And Clara will know everything. His face crumbled. You'll ruin me. You did that yourself, I replied coldly. Nolan signed the papers, his hand trembling. It was a victory, but a hollow one. I had wanted justice, but standing there, watching the broken man before me, I felt no joy, only a deep sense of loss. As I turned to leave, Clara entered the room. Her eyes widened at the sight of the signed papers. What's this? She asked, confusion etching her features. Our divorce, I said, meeting her gaze. Nolan and I are done. He's all yours now. Clara looked from me to Nolan, her expression a mix of shock and realization. You're leaving Avery for me? Nolan remained silent, his eyes on the floor. Clara, you were the other woman, but now you're the only woman. Congratulations, I said, the words laced with bitterness. I walked out, leaving them to their new reality. It was a reality they had chosen, built on lies and deceit. They deserved each other. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. The divorce was quick. Nolan too defeated to fight. The house, the savings, they were all mine. But they felt empty, remnants of a life I no longer wanted. I started over in a new apartment with a new job. It was hard, starting from scratch, but it was honest, and it was mine. Through mutual friends, I heard about Nolan and Clara. Their relationship, built on the ruins of my marriage, was rocky, fraught with mistrust and guilt. They were a constant reminder to each other of how they had hurt me, and it ate away at them. As for me, I found peace in my solitude. I had loved Nolan, but that love had been based on a lie. Now I was learning to love myself, to find happiness in my independence. I realized that revenge hadn't brought me joy, but it had brought me clarity. I was stronger now, wiser, and ready to face whatever life threw at me. Nolan and Clara had each other, but I had something far more valuable, my freedom and my dignity. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. Months had passed since the divorce, and life had settled into a new rhythm. The wounds were healing, slowly but surely. I had learned to embrace the quiet, finding solace in the small joys of everyday life. One crisp autumn evening, as I sipped tea on my balcony, my phone rang. It was Jess. "Avery, have you heard about Nolan?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. "No, what happened?" I replied, a flicker of curiosity igniting within me. "He's left town, moved away with Clara. Apparently, they're trying to start over somewhere new," Jess explained. I paused, processing the news. Nolan and Clara leaving town was the final chapter in our shared story. A story that had ended not with dramatic confrontations, but with quiet departures. "Do you feel okay about it?" Jess asked gently. I smiled, more to myself than to her. "I'm okay, Jess. More than okay. I've moved on." We chatted for a while longer before hanging up. I sat there, looking out at the city lights, reflecting on the journey I had been through. Nolan's betrayal had shattered my world, but it had also rebuilt me. Stronger, more resilient. I had sought revenge, but in the process, I had found something far more valuable, my sense of self. I realized that true victory wasn't in seeing Nolan and Clara's downfall. It was in my rise from the ashes of our broken marriage. It was in the life I had built for myself, one that was authentically mine. The next morning I walked to work, the city bustling around me. I felt a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose. My past with Nolan was just that, the past, and I was ready to embrace whatever the future held. As I reached my office, my colleague, Mark, greeted me with a warm smile. "Morning, Avery. You look good today." "Thanks, Mark. It's a new day," I replied, returning his smile. And it truly was. A new day, a new chapter, one where I was the author writing my own story, one filled with hope, strength, and endless possibilities.
The dove's soft cooing felt like mockery as I stared at the cream-colored envelope on my kitchen counter. My hands trembled as I traced the gold-embossed edges, fighting the urge to rip it to shreds. Instead, I reached for my wine glass, draining what remained of my morning's liquid courage. The invitation had arrived yesterday, but I'd needed 24 hours to work up the nerve to open it. 24 hours of telling myself I was being paranoid, that the whispers and sideways glances at family gatherings meant nothing, that my best friend and my father couldn't possibly. "Just open it, Victoria," I muttered, sliding my finger under the seal. The paper was expensive, thick and textured, probably hand-pressed by some artisan in Vermont. Dad always did have expensive taste. The words hit me like a physical blow. "Join us in celebrating the union of Randall Sanderson and Delaney Horton." My wine glass shattered against the wall before I even realized I'd thrown it. Red droplets trickled down the white paint like blood, and I watched them fall, feeling oddly detached from my own body. The dove outside cooed again, and I wanted to scream. 6 months ago, Delaney had been my maid of honor. She'd helped me pick out my dress, arranged my bachelorette party, held my bouquet while I said my vows. And my father, he'd walked me down the aisle with tears in his eyes, promising he was proud of the woman I'd become. Now here they were, their names entwined in golden script, mocking everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. My phone buzzed. Linda's face appeared on the screen, and I almost ignored it. But Linda had been there through my mother leaving, through the divorce, through everything. She'd know what to say. "Have you checked your mail?" Her voice was gentle, careful.
They're getting married." The words came out hollow, emotionless. "My best friend and my father are getting married." "Oh, honey, did you know?" The question escaped before I could stop it. "Has everyone been laughing behind my back this whole time?" "God, no. I just got my invitation this morning. I couldn't believe— I mean, isn't she only 32? And your dad must be 58. I pressed my forehead against the cool kitchen window. "He's 58, and she was at my wedding 6 months ago, pretending to be my best friend while she was—" My voice cracked. The memory hit me like a sucker punch, Dad pulling me aside at my reception, his eyes bright with something I'd mistaken for joy. "Sweetheart," he'd said, squeezing my hands, "I know I haven't always been the father you deserved, but I promise I'm going to give you something better. Something that will make up for everything." I'd thought he meant he was finally going to be present, to be the dad I'd needed since Mom left. Instead, he'd been planning to become my father-in-law. "I should have seen it," I whispered, more to myself than Linda. All those times she came over for family dinner, how she always asked about him, always laughed too hard at his jokes. I thought she was just being nice, trying to include him because she knew how much I wanted a real family again. "This isn't your fault," Linda said firmly. "They're the ones who betrayed you. They're the ones who— The wedding's in 3 months. I cut her off, reading the date again. "At the Rosewood Hotel, where I got married." The silence on the other end of the line stretched out like a shadow. "Victoria!" Linda's tone held a warning. She knew me too well. "Whatever you're thinking, did I tell you what Dad said to me, right before I left for my honeymoon?" I traced a finger through the condensation on the window. "He said he was going to give me something better, something to make up for everything. Listen to me." "Well, maybe I should return the favor." My voice had gone quiet, steady. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something darker, something that burned. Maybe I should give them something better too. Something they'll never forget. The dove outside finally flew away, leaving behind a single white feather on my windowsill. I watched it flutter in the breeze, remembering how many we'd released at my wedding, how they'd symbolized peace, new beginnings, hope. This time, there would be no doves, no peace, no forgiveness, just justice. And I knew exactly how to serve it. The old photo album felt heavy in my lap, each page weighted with memories I couldn't trust anymore. I'd pulled it out, hoping to find— what? Proof that I'd imagined the whole thing? Instead, every image of Delaney at our family gatherings now seemed tainted, like watching a horror movie where you know the killer is hiding in plain sight. "You need to eat something," Linda said from my kitchen, the clatter of dishes punctuating her concern. "When's the last time you had an actual meal?" I flipped to a photo from last Christmas. There was Delaney perched on the arm of Dad's favorite chair, both of them laughing at some private joke. How had I been so blind? "Victoria?" Linda appeared with a plate of toast. "You're doing that thing again, where you disappear into your head and plot murder." "Not murder." I closed the album with a snap. "Just destruction. There's a difference." She set the plate down and settled beside me on the couch. "Talk to me. What are you really thinking?" "I'm thinking about the letter." I pulled it from between the album pages. Cream paper, matching the wedding invitation perfectly. The one Delaney sent me 3 weeks ago, gushing about how excited she was to be my bridesmaid, about how she'd always wanted a sister. Linda took the letter, scanning it quickly. Her sharp intake of breath told me she'd reached the part that had kept me awake all night. "Your father has been such a rock for me lately," she read aloud. "Every time Marcus and I fight, Randall reminds me that real love is worth waiting for." Jesus Christ! She was already sleeping with him. The words tasted like acid. While she was helping me pick out my wedding dress, while she was standing next to me at the altar, she was sleeping with my father. "We don't know that for sure." "Oh, I know." I grabbed my phone, pulling up the text thread. "Look at these messages. All those times she was working late, but somehow ended up at my house for dinner. All those Sunday brunches she just happened to show up for." Linda scrolled through the texts, her expression darkening. That manipulative little, "It gets better." I snatched the phone back, finding the photo I discovered at 3 a.m. "This is from 4 months before my wedding. Look at her hand." The image showed Delaney at some charity event, her arm draped casually over a chair. On her right hand gleamed my grandmother's sapphire ring, the one Dad had promised would be mine on my 30th birthday. He gave her Mom's ring. My voice cracked. Before my wedding, before he even walked me down the aisle, he gave her Mom's ring. Linda wrapped her arms around me as the tears finally came. "We'll fix this," she whispered. "Whatever you need." I need them to hurt." I pulled away, wiping my eyes. "I need them to feel what I'm feeling right now." "And then what? You'll feel better?" "No." I stood up, moving to the window, where the morning sun cast long shadows across my floor. "But at least they won't get to feel better either." My phone buzzed. Another message from Delaney. They'd been coming steadily since the invitations went out, each one more sickeningly sweet than the last. This one made my stomach turn. I know this must be a shock, but I hope you'll stand beside me like I stood beside you. You're still my best friend, my sister. Nothing has to change." Linda read over my shoulder and swore softly. "What are you going to do?" I thought about the ring, about all those secret dinners, about the way they'd played me for a fool. Then I thought about the Rosewood Hotel, where I'd celebrated the happiest day of my life, and where they planned to celebrate theirs. So I'm going to give them exactly what they want. I typed out a reply with steady fingers. "Of course I'll be your bridesmaid. Nothing would make me happier." "Victoria," Linda's voice held a note of fear. "What are you planning?" I showed her my phone screen, where an email from Dad's business partner, Prudence, sat unopened. The subject line read, Randall's financial irregularities. Urgent. I'm planning to be the perfect daughter," I said softly. "The perfect friend. Right up until the moment I'm not." The sun caught the diamond on my own wedding ring, sending fractured light dancing across the walls. Soon, I'd make sure their perfect day shattered just as beautifully. Linda picked up her purse, hesitating at the door. "Just promise me you'll think this through. Really think about what you're risking." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "The only thing I'm risking is their happiness. And they risked mine first." Fresh coffee filled my apartment with the illusion of normalcy as I spread the documents across my kitchen table. 3 weeks of playing the supportive daughter had yielded a treasure trove of financial records, each page more damning than the last. Dad always did underestimate me, probably thought I was too broken by Mom's departure to notice anything beyond my own pain. My phone lit up with Delaney's latest message. "Bridal shower planning lunch today. Can't wait to see you." I texted back a string of heart emojis, then turned to the woman sitting across from me. "Well, Prudence, what am I looking at?" Dad's business partner adjusted her glasses, perfectly manicured nails tapping against a spreadsheet. "Your father's been cooking the books for years, moving money between accounts, inflating profits, hiding losses. Classic fraud." And Delaney? Started as his secretary last year. By month 3, she had access to all the offshore accounts. Prudence's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Quite the quick study, your friend." The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. I'd assumed their betrayal was purely personal. This added layer of financial corruption somehow made it worse. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because, dear Victoria, your father promised me partnership 20 years ago. Instead, he's grooming his new bride to take over." She slid another document across the table. "And I don't appreciate being replaced by a gold digger half my age." I studied the partnership agreement, dated 3 months before my wedding. Delaney's signature looked especially smug. "What do you want from me?" "I want what you want, justice." Prudence leaned forward. "The question is, do you have the stomach for it?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number, but the message made my heart skip. "We need to talk about your father. Meet me at Riverside Park, 2 p.m. Nicholas." I'd met Nicholas at last week's engagement dinner, Dad's new junior partner, all sharp suits and sharper smiles. He'd watched me all evening with an intensity that suggested he knew more than he was saying. I have to go, I told Prudence, gathering the documents. But first, that family heirloom I mentioned. She pulled an envelope from her briefcase. The authentication papers you requested. Your grandmother's mirror is indeed quite valuable, and quite fragile. I tucked the papers away, already imagining the mirror's ornate frame wrapped in white silk, presented as the perfect wedding gift. One good push was all it would take. The park was quiet for a weekday afternoon. Nicholas waited by the fountain, looking less polished than at dinner. His tie was loose, his hair ruffled by the wind. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said as I approached. "I'm full of surprises." I kept my tone light, practiced. Like showing up to support my father's wedding. Everyone thought I'd make a scene. "Aren't you?" His eyes met mine. "Making a scene, I mean. Just not the one they're expecting." My carefully constructed mask slipped. "What do you know?" "I know Prudence showed you the books. I know about the mirror authentication." He stepped closer. "I know you're planning something for the wedding, and I know it won't give you what you really want." "And what's that?" "Peace." His voice softened. "The kind that doesn't come from revenge. You don't know anything about what I want." But my hands were shaking as I turned away. "So, I know your mother left when you were 12. I know you've spent every day since trying to prove you're worth staying for." He caught my arm gently. "And I know your father and Delaney deserve whatever's coming to them. I just don't think you deserve what it'll do to you." Tears burned behind my eyes. "Why do you care?" "Because I've been where you are, wanting to burn everything down just to feel the heat." He released my arm. "But I also know something about your father's business that could change everything, something not even Prudence has figured out." My phone buzzed. Delaney, reminding me about lunch. The perfect opportunity to play my role, to advance my plan, to move one step closer to destroying them both. But Nicholas's words had cracked something open inside me, exposing a truth I'd been avoiding. Revenge might break them, but it was already breaking me. "What do you know?" I asked finally. He pulled out his phone, showing me an email chain that made my blood run cold. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" The answer would change everything. I just didn't know if I was ready for what that meant. Rain tapped against the window of the bridal boutique, matching the hollow rhythm in my chest as Delaney twirled in another white dress. The email chain from Nicholas played on repeat in my mind. Proof that Dad's company wasn't just committing fraud. They were laundering money for people who made fraud look like child's play. "What do you think of this one?" Delaney's voice pulled me back. She smoothed the silk against her hips, and I forced myself to smile. "Beautiful," I lied, noting how the fitted bodice highlighted her youth, how the sweep of fabric emphasized everything my father apparently couldn't resist. "But maybe something more traditional." Her face fell exactly as I'd intended. "You're right. Your dad mentioned loving those classic ball gowns." My phone buzzed. Nicholas again. "We need to talk. What you're planning could get people hurt." I muted it, focusing instead on Delaney's reflection. She was studying me in the mirror, her expression suddenly sharp beneath the bridal glow. "I know this is hard for you," she said softly. "Seeing me with Randall." "Not at all." I stood, reaching for a dress with a dramatically low back. "Try this one. Dad always did appreciate a good view." The barb landed. Her cheeks flushed, but she rallied quickly. "I love him, Victoria. This isn't some game or midlife crisis. What we have is real. Real enough to steal my mother's ring?" The words escaped before I could stop them. She froze, one hand instinctively covering her right hand, where the sapphire should have been. "He told you?" "He didn't have to. I saw you wearing it months ago." I moved closer, voice dropping. "Where is it now, Delaney? Did you lose it already? Or did Dad take it back when he realized someone might notice?" It's not what you think." She grabbed my arm as I turned away. "Your father gave it to me as a promise, yes, but..." But what? You were just borrowing it? Testing it out like you tested out my father? He was lonely. Her composure cracked. After your wedding, he was so lost. Talking about missed chances, about growing old alone. I only meant to be there for him as a friend, but you couldn't resist the business opportunity? I watched her face carefully. The partnership agreement must have been quite a bonus. Something flickered in her eyes. Confusion? Fear? What partnership agreement? Before I could press further, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Linda. Prudence called. Something's wrong. Get out of there now. The boutique's door chimed. Dad walked in, his presence filling the small space like smoke. Sweetheart, I thought I might find you here. He moved to kiss Delaney, but his eyes never left me. Those same eyes that had watched me grow up, that had shed tears at my wedding, now held something calculating and cold. Victoria was just helping me choose a dress, Delaney said, but her voice had changed. Higher, nervous. How thoughtful. Dad straightened his tie. A tell I remembered from childhood. He was worried about something. Though I'm surprised you have time, given how busy you've been with Prudence. The air thickened with unspoken threats. I thought of the documents hidden in my apartment, of the authenticated mirror, waiting to shatter their perfect day, of Nicholas's warning about people getting hurt. Just being a supportive daughter, I said, gathering my purse. Like you always wanted. Funny thing about support? He stepped between me and the door. It works both ways. For instance, I've always supported your career. Would hate to see anything happen to that new promotion of yours. My heart stuttered. Are you threatening me? Of course not. His smile was gentle, practiced. Just reminding you that families should protect each other, not go digging through old financial records. Delaney made a small sound behind me. When I glanced back, she was clutching the wedding dress like armor, her face pale. She hadn't known, I realized, about any of it. I should go, I said, pushing past him. Lots of wedding plans to arrange. His hand caught my arm, gripped tight enough to bruise. Victoria. His voice dropped to a whisper. Don't make me choose between my daughters. I'm not your daughter anymore. I pulled free. I'm just the person who's going to make you pay for everything you've done. The rain had picked up as I fled the boutique, but I barely felt it. My phone lit up with Nicholas's latest message. Whatever you're planning with that mirror, don't. There are better ways. Let me help. But as I thought of Dad's threats, of Delaney's false innocence, of everything they'd stolen from me, I knew there was no turning back. The mirror would shatter, and with it, every lie they'd built their love upon. Even if it shattered me too. Delaney's laugh echoed through the hotel lobby, the same bright sound I'd heard at countless girls' nights, now tainted by knowledge of what she'd been hiding. I gripped the mirror's authentication papers in my purse, watching her charm the wedding coordinator, with practiced ease. The ceremony will be in the grand ballroom, she was saying, just like Victoria's was. It feels right, doesn't it? Keeping it in the family? My phone vibrated. Linda, for the 5th time today. Don't do this alone. Nicholas and I can help. Please call me. I ignored it, focusing instead on the way Delaney's hand trembled slightly as she signed the venue contract. The sapphire ring was still conspicuously absent from her finger. Victoria! She spotted me, waving as if we were still best friends meeting for coffee. Perfect timing. We're just finalizing the details. The coordinator smiled professionally. How wonderful to have you back. Your wedding was absolutely stunning. Yes, I said, matching Delaney's false brightness. Dad certainly knows how to make a wedding memorable. Delaney's smile flickered. Since the boutique confrontation, she'd been watching me differently. Less like a friend, and more like someone calculating the distance to the nearest exit. Speaking of memorable, I pulled out the mirror's papers. I've finally decided on your wedding gift. Oh? Her voice lifted with genuine curiosity. Grandmother's mirror. The one that hung in the entrance hall when we were growing up. I watched her face carefully. Dad always said it should stay in the family. Something dark passed behind her eyes. That's so thoughtful. But are you sure? I know how much you loved that mirror. Insisted on it, actually. Dad's voice cut through the lobby like a blade. He appeared beside Delaney, hand possessive on her waist. Wouldn't take no for an answer. The coordinator excused herself, leaving us in a triangle of tension. I could feel Dad analyzing my every movement, looking for signs of the trap he knew I was setting. Well, Delaney said brightly, we should discuss the seating arrangements while you're here, for the reception. Actually, I stepped closer, lowering my voice. I was hoping to speak with you alone, about what happened at the boutique. Dad's fingers tightened on Delaney's waist. Sweetheart, we have that meeting. It's fine. Delaney touched his arm. Give us a minute? He hesitated, then kissed her cheek. Don't be long. But his eyes met mine in clear warning before he walked away. We found a quiet corner near the hotel bar. Delaney ordered a martini with shaking hands. The partnership agreement, she said before I could speak. The one you mentioned. I never signed anything like that. I've seen your signature. Then it's forged. She downed half her drink. Look, I know how this looks. Poor little secretary seducing the boss, getting her hands on company secrets. But I swear, Victoria, I didn't know about any of it until recently. And now that you do, now I'm in too deep. Her voice cracked. The things your father is involved with, the people he works with, I can't just walk away. You could help me stop him. She laughed bitterly. You don't get it. These people don't care about right or wrong. They care about money and power, and they'll destroy anyone who threatens either. Is that why you're marrying him? Protection? I'm marrying him because I love him. But her eyes darted away. The rest, I'm handling it. Like you handled being my friend while sleeping with my father? That was different. That was... She pressed her fingers to her temples. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. I stood, steadier than I'd felt in weeks. And now I'm going to hurt you back, starting with that mirror. Victoria, wait! She grabbed my wrist. Whatever you're planning, don't. Please. You don't understand what your father is capable of. Maybe not. I pulled free. But he doesn't understand what I'm capable of either. My phone buzzed again as I walked away. This time it was Nicholas. Found proof of Prudence's involvement. She's playing you. Don't trust her. I stared at the message, thinking of Delaney's warning, of Dad's threats, of all the pieces moving in shadows I couldn't quite see. The mirror suddenly felt less like a weapon and more like a trigger, one that might set off an explosion I couldn't control. But as I watched Dad return to Delaney, watched him kiss her like he hadn't just threatened his own daughter, I knew it was too late to change course. The mirror would shatter tomorrow, and with it, every carefully constructed lie they'd built their world upon. I just had to survive what came after. The scent of roses filled my apartment, sickeningly sweet as I stared at the mirror propped against my wall. Its ornate frame caught the morning light, casting elaborate shadows that seemed to writhe and twist. In 12 hours, it would be wrapped in white silk, ready to shatter more than just glass. A knock at the door made me jump. Nicholas stood there, rain-soaked and grim. We need to talk. I'm busy. I tried to close the door, but he caught it. Prudence is working with your father. He pushed inside, dripping water on my floor. The documents she showed you? Carefully selected. She's trying to manipulate you into doing exactly what they want. And what's that? Creating a scene. He ran a hand through his wet hair. A public disruption they can use to discredit you when the real scandal breaks. My phone lit up with a text from Delaney. Getting ready at the hotel. Please come early. Need to talk. Why should I believe you? I asked Nicholas. For all I know, you're working with them too. He pulled out his phone, playing a recording that made my blood freeze. Prudence's voice, sharp and clear. Once Victoria causes a scene at the wedding, we can paint her as unstable. No one will believe her accusations about the company. Dad's response was equally chilling. Shame about the mirror, though. Family heirloom and all. They knew! The realization hit like a physical blow. They knew I'd choose the mirror. Because they know you, Nicholas said gently. They know you'd want something symbolic, something that would hurt them the way they hurt you. I sank onto my couch, the weight of my own predictability crushing me. So what am I supposed to do? Let them win? Let them get away with everything? No. He sat beside me, close enough that I could smell rain and coffee on his skin. We exposed them the right way, with proof that can't be dismissed as a daughter's jealous tantrum. Another text from Delaney. Please, it's important. Why are you helping me? I asked Nicholas. What's in it for you? Your father's organization destroyed my family's business last year. Made it look like embezzlement, ruined my father's reputation. His jaw tightened. He didn't survive the scandal. Understanding clicked into place. That's why you took the job, to get proof. And now I have it. He showed me his phone again, folders of documents that made my stolen financial records look like parking tickets. But I need your help to use it. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Linda. Turn on the news, she said without preamble. Now. I grabbed the remote. The headline made my heart stop. Major financial fraud investigation launched. Multiple arrests expected. They're moving early, Nicholas said, reading over my shoulder. We need to. A pounding at my door cut him off. Through the peephole, I saw Delaney, mascara streaked down her face. Please, she called. They're coming. I didn't know where else to go. Nicholas grabbed my arm. Don't. It's probably a trap. But I was already opening the door. Delaney stumbled in, clutching her wedding dress in a wrinkled bundle. Your father, she gasped. He's planning to run. Tonight, during the reception. Everything's been arranged. Private plane, offshore accounts. She turned to Nicholas. They know about your evidence. They're going to pin everything on you and Victoria. Why are you telling us this? I demanded. She pulled something from her dress. The sapphire ring. Because I found out what really happened to your mother. Why she really left. Her eyes met mine, fierce through her tears. She didn't abandon you, Victoria. They drove her away, and they used me to do the same thing to you. Nicholas checked his phone, swearing softly. Police are moving on the office now. If your father runs, he won't. I walked to the mirror, running my fingers along its frame. Because we're going to give him exactly what he expects. The perfect distraction, the perfect scene. Victoria, Nicholas started. But this time, I continued, we'll be ready, all of us. Delaney straightened, wiping her eyes. What do you need me to do? I looked between them, Nicholas with his evidence, Delaney with her insider knowledge, both offering a chance at real justice instead of just revenge. First, I said, we need to deliver a wedding gift. The mirror caught our reflections, 3 people united by betrayal, now standing together against the man who'd orchestrated it all. In a few hours, that mirror would shatter. But this time, I wouldn't be the only one left picking up the pieces. Sunlight pierced through the Rosewood Hotel's stained glass windows, casting kaleidoscope shadows across Delaney's wedding dress as she paced the bridal suite. The mirror stood wrapped in white silk in the corner, waiting like a loaded gun. They're starting to arrive, Linda reported from the doorway. Nicholas is in position with the evidence. Police are standing by. My phone buzzed. Dad. Proud of you for being here, sweetheart. Let's put the past behind us. Delaney caught my reflection in the vanity mirror, her fingers twisting the sapphire ring. He still doesn't suspect? He suspects everything. I smoothed my bridesmaid's dress, the same shade of blue as the ring. He just thinks he's ahead of us. A knock at the door made us all freeze. Prudence entered, elegant in charcoal gray, her smile sharp as broken glass. Almost time, ladies. Victoria, your father's asking for you. Of course he is. I grabbed the wrapped mirror. Wouldn't want to miss giving the happy couple their gift. Prudence's eyes tracked the package. How thoughtful. Though perhaps wait until after the ceremony. Some moments shouldn't be interrupted. Don't worry. I met her gaze steadily. Everything will happen exactly when it's supposed to. The hotel corridor stretched endlessly, my heels clicking against marble as I approached Dad's suite. Each step felt like moving through water, memories flooding back, walking the same path on my wedding day, believing in love and family and forever. He opened the door before I could knock. "Victoria!" His voice was warm, practiced, perfect. I was hoping we could talk. The suite smelled of his familiar cologne, but something else lingered beneath it. Fear, maybe. Or desperation. He poured 2 glasses of scotch with slightly trembling hands. "You didn't have to do this," he said, offering me one. "Play along, pretend to accept things. I know how much we hurt you." "Do you?" I set the mirror down carefully. "Do you really?" "More than you know." He moved to the window, watching guests arrive below. "Your mother, she would have handled this better, would she?" My voice stayed steady. "Or did you drive her away too?" He turned sharply. "What did Delaney tell you?" "Enough." I lifted my glass but didn't drink. "About the threats, the manufactured evidence, the way you forced Mom to leave by making her look unstable, just like you're planning to do to me." His mask slipped for just a moment, showing something cold and calculating beneath. "You don't understand. I understand perfectly." I set my glass down. "You destroy anyone who threatens your control. Your wife, your daughter, probably Delaney eventually. The only difference is, I'm not running away." "No," he said softly. "You're planning something much stupider." He moved toward the mirror. "Let me guess. It's rigged to shatter? Create a scene? Expose my sins to all our guests? Would I do that? Yes." His smile was almost proud. "Because you're my daughter, but you're not thinking big enough." He pulled out his phone, showing me a news alert. "Major financial firm CEO found dead, apparent suicide." The photo showed Nicholas's building. My heart stopped. "No, don't worry, he's alive, for now." Dad pocketed his phone. "But my associates are very good at making accidents happen. To him, to Linda, to anyone helping you with your little revenge plot." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" He stepped closer. "Walk away, Victoria. Take the settlement I'm offering and disappear, like your mother should have." For a moment I wavered. The weight of what I was risking, not just my safety, but everyone who'd helped me, pressed down like lead. Then my phone buzzed. A photo from Nicholas. Him and Linda, safe at the police station, evidence secured. And below it, one word. Now. I smiled at my father. "You know what your mistake was? Thinking I'm like you, that I'd choose revenge over justice." The door burst open. Delaney entered in her wedding dress, phone recording. Behind her, hotel security and several stern-faced men in suits. "Mr. Sanderson?" One stepped forward, badge glinting. "We have some questions about your conversation just now, and about your wife's disappearance 15 years ago." Dad's face contorted. He lunged for the mirror, perhaps hoping to create the very distraction he'd expected from me. But I was faster. I caught the package before it fell, carefully unwrapping it to reveal not my grandmother's mirror, but a simple digital recorder. His entire confession captured in pristine audio. "You're right," I said as they led him away. "I am your daughter. That's how I knew exactly how you'd try to stop me." Delaney touched my arm, tears cutting through her perfect makeup. "I'm so sorry. For everything." Through the window, I watched them load my father into an unmarked car. The sun caught the sapphire ring one last time, no longer a symbol of betrayal, but of truth finally brought to light. "Don't be sorry," I said. "Be free." The soft hush of night wrapped around the Rosewood Hotel as guests slowly filtered out, whispering about the scandal, the arrests, the wedding that wasn't. I sat alone in the empty ballroom, surrounded by untouched champagne glasses and centerpieces that would never see their moment of glory. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Reporters, distant relatives, old friends suddenly eager to reconnect. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the small package in my lap, delivered by hotel staff just minutes ago. The handwriting on the note was achingly familiar. I've waited 15 years to give you this. Mom. My hands trembled as I opened it, revealing my grandmother's actual mirror. Not the decoy we'd used in the sting, but the real family heirloom. Smaller than I remembered, designed to fit in a purse, its silver surface still pristine despite the years. I thought you might be here. I looked up to find Nicholas in the doorway, his tie loose, looking exhausted but satisfied. The police have your father's full confession, and Prudence's. They're cooperating to avoid additional charges. Did they say anything about my mother? Better. He sat beside me. They found her. She's been living in Seattle, working as a legal advocate for women escaping financial abuse. She never stopped trying to reach you, Victoria. Your father's people intercepted everything. The mirror's weight felt heavier suddenly. All those years believing I wasn't worth staying for when she'd been fighting to come back all along. There's something else. Nicholas pulled out his phone. Remember those offshore accounts Delaney mentioned? They weren't just for running away. Your father was building a trust fund, for you. I laughed bitterly. Blood money? No. Delaney's voice came from behind us. She'd changed out of her wedding dress into simple black, the sapphire ring conspicuously absent. It was your mother's money, the settlement he forced her to leave behind. He's been adding to it, trying to ease his guilt. How did you know? She sat on my other side. Because he told me everything. How he drove your mother away. How he made her look unstable when she tried to take you with her. He said keeping the money was his insurance policy, proof he wasn't the monster she claimed. But he was. I opened the mirror, studying my reflection. I had my mother's eyes. Just a different kind. The funds are being unfrozen, Nicholas said. Once the investigation concludes, it's all yours. Your mother's lawyers are already working on it. A movement caught my eye. Linda in the doorway, holding her phone. She's here, your mom, in the lobby. She's asking to see you. My heart stuttered. I'm not ready. Yes, you are. Delaney squeezed my hand. You've been ready for 15 years. I stood, the mirror clutched to my chest. What do I even say? Whatever you need to. Nicholas straightened my dress, his touch gentle. The truth has a way of finding its own words. The lobby felt miles away, each step echoing through empty corridors. I thought of all the ways I'd imagined this moment, all the accusations and tears I'd rehearsed in my head. She stood by the fountain, older than in my memories, but somehow exactly the same. When she saw me, her hands flew to her mouth. Victoria! Her voice broke on my name. My brave, brilliant girl. I meant to be strong. Meant to ask my questions calmly, to maintain control. Instead, I fell into her arms like I was 12 years old again, the mirror pressed between us. I'm so sorry, she whispered into my hair. I never stopped fighting to get back to you. I know. And suddenly I did know, with a certainty that washed away years of doubt. I found my way back to you too. She pulled back, touching my face. You did more than that. You found the truth. You finished what I couldn't. We both did. I showed her the mirror. Together. Behind us, I heard Linda quietly ushering everyone else away, giving us privacy. Through the hotel's windows, dawn was breaking over the city, painting everything in new light. I have so many questions, I said. I have so many answers. She smiled through her tears. And all the time in the world to share them. I opened the mirror one last time, but instead of studying my reflection, I watched our images together. Mother and daughter, lost and found, broken and healing. The glass didn't shatter. It didn't need to. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't destruction at all. It's reconstruction, building something stronger from the pieces of what was broken. And finally, after 15 years, we could begin.
The clinking of silverware against plates echoed through the dining room as our family gathered for another routine Sunday dinner. My husband, Caleb, chatted amiably with my niece, Lila, who had been staying with us for the weekend. The aroma of my famous pot roast filled the air, but little did I know that the evening's events would leave a far more pungent taste. "This is delicious, Aunt Meredith," Lila said, taking another bite. "It's been so long since I've had a home-cooked meal like this." "Thank you, sweetie," I replied with a smile, savoring the moment of normalcy amidst the chaos that was about to unfold. Caleb nodded in agreement, his mouth full. "Your aunt's a fantastic cook. You should come over more often." Lila's gaze dropped, her expression turning somber. "I'm not sure if that's such a good idea." An uneasy silence settled over the table. Caleb and I exchanged a puzzled glance, sensing the shift in Lila's demeanor. "What's wrong, honey?" I asked, reaching across the table to touch her hand. Lila's eyes welled up with tears, and she let out a shuddering breath. "I can't keep this a secret anymore. Dad, he's been doing something illegal at work." The words hung heavy in the air, like a suffocating fog. Caleb's brow furrowed, his lawyer's instincts kicking in. "What do you mean, illegal?" He probed gently. Lila's trembling hands gripped the table's edge. "He's been embezzling money from the company. I overheard him talking about it on the phone with someone." My heart sank, and a wave of nausea washed over me. My own brother Derek, stealing from the very company that employed us both? It seemed too outrageous to be true, and yet Lila's distress left little room for doubt. "Are you sure about this, Lila?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, her expression a mixture of fear and determination. "I wouldn't lie about something like this, Aunt Meredith. He's been acting strange for months, always stressed and spending money like it's going out of style. I didn't want to believe it at first, but the evidence is staring us right in the face." Caleb reached across the table, clasping Lila's hand in a reassuring gesture. "We'll get to the bottom of this, I promise. Your dad's going to have to answer for his actions, but we'll make sure you and your mom are taken care of." As the gravity of the situation sank in, I couldn't help but feel a sense of betrayal. Derek was my own flesh and blood, someone I had trusted implicitly. Now, his actions threatened to tear our family apart, and I found myself caught in the crosshairs of a battle I never saw coming. The pot roast lay untouched, its once tantalizing aroma now a bitter reminder of the harsh reality that had invaded our home. As Layla's confession echoed in my mind, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. I could barely sleep that night, Lila's revelation replaying in my mind like a broken record. How could Derek, my own brother, be capable of such deceit? As morning light crept through the curtains, I resolved to confront him and get to the bottom of this mess. Caleb insisted on coming with me, his jaw set in a grim line. He's not going to like what we have to say, but he needs to face the consequences of his actions. We arrived at Derek's upscale suburban home, the extravagance of it all now glaringly conspicuous. Caleb rang the doorbell, and after a few moments Derek answered, his face falling when he saw us. "Meredith? Caleb, what brings you two here so early?" he asked, eyes darting between us suspiciously. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "We need to talk, Derek. It's about the company." His expression hardened and he stepped back, ushering us inside. "What about it?" "Don't play dumb, Derek," Caleb interjected, his tone stern. "Lila told us everything, the embezzlement, the illegal activities, it all ends now." Derek's face contorted with rage, and he slammed his fist against the wall. "That little brat! How dare she stick her nose where it doesn't belong?" "She's your daughter, Derek," I cried, appalled by his callous reaction. "How could you put your own family at risk like this?" He whirled towards me, his eyes wild. "Don't you dare lecture me about family, Meredith. You have no idea what I've had to do to provide for all of you." "By stealing? By breaking the law?" Caleb's voice boomed, his composure fraying. "You've not only betrayed your company, but also your own flesh and blood." Derek let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "Says the man who made a career out of locking people up. You're no better than I am, Caleb." The tension in the room was palpable, like a coiled spring ready to snap. I placed a hand on Caleb's arm, silently pleading with him to remain calm. "We're not here to fight, Derek," I said, my voice trembling. "We just want the truth." Derek's shoulders sagged, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of remorse in his eyes. But just as quickly, it was gone, replaced by a steely resolve. "Fine, you want the truth?" he spat. "I did what I had to do to keep this family afloat. After the divorce, I was drowning in debt, and the company was my only lifeline. You think they would have cared if I went under? If Lila and her mother ended up on the streets? His words hung in the air, a twisted justification for his crimes. Caleb shook his head, his jaw clenched. That doesn't make it right, Derek. You've broken the law, and there will be consequences. Derek's eyes narrowed, and he took a step closer, his voice lowering to a menacing whisper. You're not going to do anything, Caleb. Not if you know what's good for you and your precious little family. The veiled threat hung heavy between us, and I felt a chill run down my spine. In that moment, I realized that the brother I thought I knew was gone, replaced by a man consumed by greed and desperation. As we left Derek's house, the weight of his actions bearing down on us, I couldn't help but wonder if we had just opened Pandora's box, and what horrors might lie ahead. Derek's thinly veiled threat hung over us like a dark cloud as we left his house. Caleb's jaw was set in a grim line, his knuckles white from gripping the steering wheel. That arrogant son of a, he muttered under his breath, his words trailing off into a frustrated sigh. I placed a hand on his arm, trying to calm him. Caleb, what are we going to do? He's not going to just roll over and admit his guilt. Caleb's eyes met mine, a steely determination burning within them. Then we'll make him. I'm not going to let that scumbag get away with what he's done. In that moment, I saw a glimpse of the tenacious prosecutor Caleb had once been, a man who wouldn't rest until justice was served. Where do we start? I asked, my voice wavering slightly. We start by gathering evidence, Caleb replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. Anything we can find that proves Derek's involvement in this embezzlement scheme. The days that followed were a whirlwind of covert investigation. Caleb pored over financial records, cross-referencing dates and transactions, building an ironclad case against my brother. I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease, as if I were betraying my own flesh and blood. I know this is hard for you, Meredith, Caleb said one evening, his voice softer than usual. But Derek made his choices, and now he has to face the consequences. I nodded, fighting back tears. It's just, he's my brother, Caleb. How could he do something like this? Caleb reached across the table, taking my hand in his. Greed can make even the most trusted people do terrible things, but we can't let that blind us to the truth. As the evidence mounted, a clearer picture began to emerge. Derek had been systematically siphoning funds from the company for years, using his position to cover his tracks. But it wasn't just the money. He had also been manipulating and threatening those closest to him, including his estranged wife, Elise, and their daughter, Lila. That bastard, Caleb growled, slamming his fist on the table as we reviewed the latest findings. He's been holding Elise and Lila hostage this whole time, using their fear and his control over their finances to keep them quiet. I felt sick to my stomach, the depth of Derek's depravity hitting me like a ton of bricks. This was no longer just about embezzlement. It was about protecting my family from a man who had descended into a pit of moral corruption. Caleb's eyes met mine, his gaze unwavering. We have to stop him, Meredith, no matter what it takes. In that moment, I knew there was no turning back. Derek had made his choices, and now it was up to us to make ours, to stand up against his wickedness and bring him to justice, no matter the cost. As the days wore on, the weight of Derek's crimes began to take its toll. At work, whispers and sideways glances followed me through the corridors, my connection to the unfolding scandal like a scarlet letter. How could you not have known, Meredith? Janet, a coworker, asked one day, her voice dripping with judgment. I clenched my fists, biting back the urge to lash out. My brother's actions are his own. I had no idea he was capable of such deceit. Janet shook her head, her lips pursed. Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it? The comment stung, and I fought back tears as I retreated to my office, slamming the door behind me. How dare she insinuate that I was somehow complicit in Derek's crimes? The ringing of my phone startled me, and I snatched it up, struggling to compose myself. Hello? Aunt Meredith? It was Lila, her voice trembling. I need your help. My heart sank, and a wave of dread washed over me. What's wrong, honey? It's Dad, she choked out between sobs. He found out I told you and Uncle Caleb everything. He's furious, and he's threatening to cut me off completely. I could feel the anger bubbling within me. a protective instinct kicking in. "That bastard," I growled. "Don't worry, Lila. We'll take care of this." Hanging up, I wasted no time in calling Caleb, relaying the situation with urgency. His voice was grim, but resolute. "I'll be right there. We're not letting him get away with this anymore." Within the hour, Caleb was at my office, his expression thunderous. He pulled me into a fierce embrace, and I could feel the tension radiating off him. "That son of a bitch has gone too far," he seethed. "Threatening his own daughter like that, it's unforgivable." I nodded, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. "We have to stop him, Caleb, before he hurts Lila or anyone else." The drive to Derek's house was a blur, my mind racing with a million different scenarios. What would we find when we got there? Would Derek be reasonable, or would his desperation drive him to new lows? The moment we stepped onto his doorstep, the air was thick with hostility. Derek flung open the door, his face contorted with rage. "What do you two want now?" he spat, his eyes darting between us. Caleb stepped forward, his stance unwavering. "We're here to put an end to your little charade, Derek. The threats, the manipulation, it all stops now." Derek's laughter was like nails on a chalkboard. "Or what? You'll throw me in jail? You don't have the guts, Caleb." In a flash, Caleb had Derek pinned against the wall, his forearm pressed against his throat. "Don't test me, Derek. I won't let you hurt my family anymore." The venom in Caleb's voice sent a chill down my spine, but I knew he was right. We had reached our breaking point, and there was no turning back. As Derek struggled against Caleb's grip, his eyes met mine, and in that moment I saw the true depth of his depravity. This was no longer the brother I had known and loved. This was a monster, consumed by greed and willing to crush anyone who stood in his way. The die was cast, and the battle lines were drawn. It was us against Derek, a fight for survival and redemption. And as I watched the two men grapple, I knew that no matter the outcome, our lives would never be the same again. The confrontation with Derek had been a stark wake-up call, a reminder that we were dealing with a man who had fully embraced his own depravity. As Caleb and I regrouped, the weight of the task before us seemed more daunting than ever. "We can't take him on alone," Caleb said, his brow furrowed in thought. "He's too desperate, too willing to cross any line to protect himself." I nodded, my mind already racing with possibilities. "What about Elise? She's been living under his thumb for years. She might be willing to help us bring him down." Caleb's eyes lit up, a glimmer of hope flickering in their depths. "That's brilliant, Meredith. If we can get her on our side, it'll be a major blow to Derek's defenses." Reaching out to Elise was a delicate process, shrouded in secrecy to protect her from Derek's wrath. But when we finally met, the pain and resentment in her eyes were palpable. "That bastard has made my life a living hell," she spat, her knuckles white from gripping the table. "He's threatened me, controlled every aspect of my existence, all to keep me quiet about his little schemes." Caleb leaned forward, his voice low and reassuring. "Not anymore, Elise. We're going to stop him, but we need your help." The fire in Elise's eyes was unmistakable, a burning desire for justice that had been simmering for far too long. "Whatever it takes," she said firmly. "I'm done living in fear." With Elise on board, the pieces began to fall into place. Caleb's contacts from his days as a prosecutor proved invaluable as we slowly built a network of allies, disgruntled employees, forensic accountants, anyone who could help us unravel the tangled web of Derek's crimes. But as our efforts intensified, so did Derek's desperation. Lila reported increasingly erratic behavior, outbursts of rage, and thinly veiled threats. It was clear that he was starting to sense the noose tightening around him. "We have to be careful," Caleb warned during one of our clandestine meetings. "Derek's like a caged animal right now, and there's no telling how far he'll go to protect himself." The tension was palpable, a constant undercurrent of danger lurking beneath the surface. But we were resolved, united in our determination to bring Derek's reign of terror to an end. Late one night, as I sat poring over financial records, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was one of Caleb's contacts, his voice laced with urgency. "We've got him," the man said breathlessly. "Ironclad evidence of fraud, money laundering, the whole 9 yards. It's time to make our move." I felt a rush of adrenaline, the moment we'd been working towards finally within reach. Quickly, I relayed the news to Caleb and our team, setting the wheels in motion for the final confrontation. As I looked around the room at the determined faces of our allies, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and gratitude. We had started this journey alone, but now we were a force to be reckoned with, a band of unlikely heroes united against a common enemy. Derek's downfall was imminent, and as we prepared for the final showdown, I knew that no matter the outcome, we had already won a victory. We had refused to cower in fear, and we had built a network of allies strong enough to take on even the most formidable foe. The stage was set, and the curtain was about to rise on the ultimate act of reckoning. Derek's reign of terror was coming to an end, and we were ready to face him head-on, armed with the truth and a resolve that could not be broken. The day of reckoning had arrived, and the air was thick with tension as we gathered in the conference room at Caleb's law firm. Elise sat beside me, her hands trembling slightly, while Lila fidgeted nervously in her chair. The weight of what was about to transpire hung heavy over us all. Caleb entered the room, a grim expression etched onto his face. "It's time," he said, his voice low and resolute. We followed him down the corridor, our footsteps echoing off the walls like a funeral march. As we approached the boardroom, the muffled sounds of raised voices filtered through the doors. Derek was already inside, surrounded by members of the company's board. Caleb paused, turning to face us. "Remember, no matter what happens in there, we stay calm and focused. This is our chance to bring Derek's reign of terror to an end, once and for all." With a deep breath, he pushed open the doors, and we filed into the room. Derek's eyes widened in surprise, his gaze flickering between us and the board members. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his voice dripping with disdain. One of the board members, a stern-faced woman named Mrs. Whitmore, fixed him with a steely glare. "We've been made aware of some rather disturbing allegations against you, Mr. Reynolds. Allegations of embezzlement, fraud, and misconduct." Derek scoffed, his lips curling into a sneer. "Preposterous. These are nothing more than baseless accusations from disgruntled employees and family members with personal vendettas." Caleb stepped forward, a thick file clutched in his hand. "I'm afraid the evidence speaks for itself, Derek. Bank records, financial statements, eyewitness accounts. It all points to a systematic and calculated effort to siphon funds from this company for your own personal gain." The color drained from Derek's face as Caleb began presenting the damning evidence, each document and testimony like a nail in the coffin of his deceit. "You've been living a lie, Derek," Caleb said, his voice ringing out in the silent room. "And not just with this company, but with your own family as well." Elise rose to her feet, her eyes blazing with a mixture of pain and resolve. "He's right. For years, Derek has manipulated and threatened me, using our finances as a weapon to keep me silent about his misdeeds." Lila followed suit, her voice trembling but resolute. "He's even turned on me, his own daughter, when I discovered the truth about his crimes." Derek's eyes darted around the room, his carefully constructed facade crumbling before our eyes. "This is absurd," he sputtered, his face flushed with rage. "You have no proof, no concrete evidence." But Caleb was ready, producing a final damning piece of evidence. A recorded phone conversation between Derek and one of his co-conspirators, detailing the intricate web of fraud and money laundering. As the recording played, the silence in the room was deafening, a palpable sense of shock and disbelief hanging in the air. When the final words faded, Derek slumped back in his chair, defeated. The weight of his crimes had finally caught up to him, and there was nowhere left to run. Mrs. Whitmore cleared her throat, her gaze fixed on Derek with a mixture of disgust and disappointment. "In light of the overwhelming evidence presented here today, the board has no choice but to terminate your employment with this company, effective immediately." Derek's head snapped up, his eyes wild and desperate. "You can't do this. I built this company from the ground up." But his protests fell on deaf ears as the board members turned their backs on him, one by one. In that moment, I saw the true depth of Derek's fall, a once powerful man reduced to a pathetic, sniveling mess, his lies and betrayals laid bare for all to see. As security escorted him from the building, Caleb placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "It's over, Meredith," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Justice has been served. I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders, but the victory was bittersweet. Derek's downfall had come at a great personal cost, tearing our family apart and exposing the darkest corners of human greed and depravity. But as I looked around at the faces of those who had stood by us, Elise, Lila, our allies in the shadows, I knew that we had emerged from this ordeal stronger, united by a shared commitment to truth and accountability. The path ahead would be long and difficult, but in that moment, I knew that we had taken the first steps towards redemption, towards healing the wounds that Derek had inflicted upon us all. The aftermath of Derek's downfall was a whirlwind of legal proceedings and media scrutiny. As the details of his crimes made headlines, the public outrage was palpable, a collective sense of betrayal and disbelief that someone in such a position of power could stoop to such depravity. Through it all, Caleb stood by my side, a steadfast pillar of strength and unwavering determination. "We're not done yet," he would remind me, his jaw set in a grim line. Derek needs to face the full consequences of his actions, and face them he did. The criminal charges came swiftly, a laundry list of offenses that would make even the most hardened criminal wince: fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, and more. As the court proceedings unfolded, the extent of Derek's deception was laid bare, each revelation more shocking than the last. Elise took the stand, her testimony detailing the years of emotional and financial abuse she had endured at Derek's hands. "He made me feel like a prisoner in my own life," she said, her voice trembling with barely contained fury. "Always dangling the threat of financial ruin over my head, using our daughter as leverage to keep me in line." Lila's testimony was equally damning, painting a picture of a man so consumed by greed and ambition that he was willing to sacrifice his own family on the altar of his desires. As the evidence mounted, Derek's arrogance slowly crumbled, his once boastful demeanor replaced by a sullen, defeated hunch. When the guilty verdict was finally read, a hush fell over the courtroom, the weight of the moment almost palpable. "Derek Reynolds, you have been found guilty on all counts," the judge intoned, his voice ringing out like a death knell. "In light of the severity of your crimes and the devastating impact they have had on countless lives, I hereby sentence you to 25 years in a federal penitentiary." The words hung in the air, a collective sigh of relief and vindication rippling through the room. Derek's face was ashen, his eyes vacant, as the reality of his situation finally set in. In the days that followed, Caleb worked tirelessly to ensure that Elise and Lila were provided for, securing a substantial divorce settlement and financial compensation for the years of anguish they had endured. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of things, but an important one nonetheless. As for me, the weight of Derek's betrayal still hung heavy on my heart. He was my brother, my own flesh and blood, and yet he had shown no hesitation in sacrificing everything: our family, our bond, our trust, in pursuit of his own selfish desires. "You did the right thing, Meredith," Caleb would remind me, his arms wrapped around me in a comforting embrace. "Derek made his choices, and now he's facing the consequences." And slowly, gradually, I began to heal. The wounds inflicted by Derek's actions were deep, but with the love and support of Caleb, Elise, and Lila, I found the strength to move forward, to reclaim the pieces of my life that had been shattered. It was during one of our regular family dinners, a ritual we had re-established in the wake of Derek's downfall, that I finally found a sense of closure. As we gathered around the table, the laughter and warmth a stark contrast to the darkness we had endured, I looked around at the faces of those I loved most. Elise, her eyes shining with a newfound sense of freedom and empowerment. Lila, her smile radiant and unencumbered by the weight of her father's sins. And Caleb, my rock, my unwavering source of strength and love. In that moment, I realized that while Derek had tried to tear us apart, he had ultimately failed. Our bonds had been tested, but they had emerged stronger than ever, forged in the fires of adversity and tempered by our collective resolve. As I raised my glass, a sense of gratitude washed over me. "To family," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "and to the journey that has brought us here, stronger and more resilient than ever before." The echoes of agreement filled the room, a testament to the power of love and perseverance in the face of even the darkest of trials. Derek's fate was sealed, his legacy one of greed and betrayal. But for us, a new chapter was unfolding, one filled with hope, redemption, and the promise of brighter days ahead. The days leading up to Derek's sentencing were a whirlwind of emotions. Caleb and I had spent countless hours preparing our victim impact statements, poring over every detail, every heartache Derek had inflicted upon us. "This is our chance to have our voices heard," Caleb said, his brow furrowed in concentration, "to make sure Derek understands the true gravity of his actions." When the day finally arrived, the courtroom was packed, a sea of faces eager to witness the final act of reckoning. Derek was led in, his once imposing figure now diminished, his eyes downcast and hollow. As I took the stand, my hands trembled, but my voice was steady, fueled by a deep well of resolve. "Derek Reynolds was once my brother, my own flesh and blood," I began, my words ringing out in the hushed courtroom. "But the man who sits before us today is a stranger, a shell of the person I once knew and loved." I recounted the pain, the betrayal, the utter devastation Derek's actions had wrought upon our family, how his greed had nearly torn us apart, leaving scars that may never fully heal. "You had everything, Derek," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "A loving family, a successful career, a life that so many would envy. And yet, it wasn't enough. Your insatiable greed drove you to sacrifice it all, to burn every bridge and crush anyone who stood in your way." Derek's eyes remained fixed on the floor, his jaw clenched, but I could see the flicker of shame in his expression. When it was Caleb's turn, he did not hold back, his words lashing out like whips against Derek's battered ego. "You are a coward, Derek Reynolds," Caleb said, his voice dripping with disdain. "A selfish, manipulative coward who thought he could bend the world to his will, consequences be damned." He recounted the threats, the emotional and financial abuse Derek had inflicted upon Elise and Lila, his own daughter. "What kind of man does that?" Caleb thundered. "What kind of soulless monster preys upon his own family for personal gain?" Derek flinched, his hands balling into fists, but he remained silent, his head bowed in silent submission. As the judge handed down Derek's sentence, 25 years with no possibility of parole, a sense of finality settled over the courtroom. It was done. The monster had been caged, and justice had been served. In the weeks that followed, a strange sense of calm descended upon our lives. The storm had passed, leaving us battered but ultimately stronger for having weathered it together. Elise and Lila found solace in their newfound freedom, slowly rebuilding their lives from the ashes of Derek's destruction. Lila, in particular, blossomed, her smile radiant and unencumbered by the weight of her father's sins. "It's like a weight has been lifted," she confided in me one day, her eyes shining with hope. "I can finally breathe again, without the constant fear of his wrath hanging over me." As for Caleb and me, our bond had been forged in the fires of adversity, tempered by our shared commitment to truth and justice. We had faced the darkness head-on and emerged on the other side, battered but unbroken. It was during one of our regular family dinners that I truly felt the weight of what we had endured and what we had overcome. As we gathered around the table, the laughter and warmth a stark contrast to the darkness we had faced, I looked around at the faces of those I loved most. Elise, her eyes shining with a newfound sense of freedom and empowerment. Lila, her smile radiant and unencumbered by the weight of her father's sins. And Caleb, my rock, my unwavering source of strength and love. In that moment I realized that while Derek had tried to tear us apart, he had ultimately failed. Our bonds had been tested, but they had emerged stronger than ever, forged in the fires of adversity and tempered by our collective resolve. As I raised my glass, a sense of gratitude washed over me. "To family," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "and to the journey that has brought us here, stronger and more resilient than ever before." The echoes of agreement filled the room, a testament to the power of love and perseverance in the face of even the darkest of trials. Derek's fate was sealed, his legacy one of greed and betrayal. But for us, a new chapter was unfolding, one filled with hope, redemption, and the promise of brighter days ahead. The jarring ring of my cell phone startled me from my mundane afternoon. I fumbled to grab it from the coffee table, nearly spilling my lukewarm tea. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. The voice on the other end was one I never expected to hear again, my ex-mother-in-law, Edna. "Cassie, it's time." Her stern tone gave me chills. How could you think of missing Silas's funeral? I froze in disbelief. Silas, my high school sweetheart turned ex-husband, had died over a year ago, lost in a tragic car accident. At least, that was what Edna had told me herself in her last bitter phone call. Wait, what? I stammered. I don't understand. Silas already. Edna cut me off sharply. Don't play dumb. The service is tomorrow at St. Mary's. My pulse pounded as I struggled to make sense of her words. St. Mary's, where Silas and I had married 13 years ago. Edna, you told me Silas died last January, I insisted, my voice shaking. You said you blamed me. And he did, she snapped. But now he's passed again. Don't tell me you plan on disrespecting my boy by not showing up. The line went dead before I could respond. I sat paralyzed, my 4-year-old son Eli's laughter from the next room barely registering through the fog clouding my mind. Somehow in my gut, I knew Edna's call was no cruel prank. I grabbed my laptop with trembling hands, quickly typing Silas's name into the search bar. An obituary stared back at me from the glowing screen. My handsome ex-husband, frozen forever at age 32. Yesterday's date marked the finality of it in black and white. Silas was truly gone. But how? None of this made any sense. I skimmed the details of the tribute through vision blurred by tears. A tragic construction accident, survived by his wife Marcella and their infant son. Marcella. Her name jolted me as my shock morphed to anger. The woman Silas had left me for when I was pregnant with Eli. The woman who had swooped in to take my place. I shoved back the bitter memories threatening to overwhelm me. Marcella was far in my past now, just like Silas. But this funeral brought everything roaring back. Grabbing Eli's hand, I resolutely led him out the door to my car. I had to know what kind of sick game was being played here. And I refused to let Eli's rightful place be erased by the woman who had already taken so much from us. St. Mary's loomed before me more foreboding than I remembered as I marched towards it. Eli's little hand nestled securely in my grip. I did not know what I would discover inside about Silas's supposed double death, but I knew one thing for certain. I would protect my son and the truth at all costs. The pews of St. Mary's were packed, stifling even, yet an almost eerie silence still hung in the incense-filled air. I clutched Eli close as I made my way to the front, ignoring the glares and whispers cutting through me with each step. I held my breath, bracing myself for my first glimpse at the photos adorning Silas's closed casket. Sure enough, the images chilled me to my core as we approached. Smiling portraits encircled elaborate bouquets and candles, a vibrant Silas frozen in time forever at 32 years old, exactly as the recent obituary had depicted him. My gaze turned towards the largest portrait, which featured Silas embracing a woman with flowing blonde hair and a cunning smile, Marcella. Underneath it sat a makeshift playpen where Marcella's infant son kicked and cooed, oblivious to the morbid day marking his father's death. I had just bent down instinctively to soothe the crying baby when a cold hand grasped my arm. "Who do you think you're fooling?" A harsh voice spat as I spun around. I stared into the soulless gray eyes of Marcella herself, still clutching the child to her hip with a painted claw. "Get away from my son." Anger swelled within me. This fraud, raising Silas's boy, playing the role of the pretty young widow to milk this for all it was worth, it was revolting. "Didn't expect to see the ex-wife, now did you?" I seethed back, letting my contempt show. "Oh, and congratulations on the supposed tragic accident." Blood drained from Marcella's face. "Why, you little—" She sputtered, composing herself as mourners glanced our way. Her expression transformed to a well-practiced pout as she dabbed mock tears and sauntered towards the open casket. I watched with disgust as Marcella embraced Silas' parents, her sniffles loud in the pin-drop silence. Even now, her only concern was maintaining appearances for the sake of their fortune and estate. So blinded by greed that they actually believed her lies and supported this gold digger next to their only son's grave. A small hand in mine reminded me this show was not my concern anymore. I had my own flesh and blood to protect and promises to keep. The thought fueled me as I turned my back on Marcella's performance, with a resolve colder than the ice in her glare when she cried on their shoulders. She would not get away with this act of manipulation, and she would certainly never lay her claws on what was meant for Eli. Over the sobs, the priest invited us to view Silas one final time. With one last glance at Eli, we slowly approached the casket, flanked by flashy floral tributes like misplaced trophies. Lying inside, Silas looked hollow, almost diminished, a shell of the bright and vibrant soul I had once called mine. Never forget that truth prevails over deception, no matter how wicked, I whispered softly to Eli as I squeezed his shoulder. As we left Silas to whatever peace death would bring him, I vowed we would uncover what Marcella so desperately wanted hidden behind her web of lies. The funeral took every ounce of my energy. As we exited the suffocating church, I knew uncovering Marcella's deceit was now non-negotiable. I asked my neighbor Holly, Eli's godmother, to watch him for a bit. Then I headed downtown, my heels clicking on the pavement with purpose as Silas's law firm came into view. I didn't have an appointment, but my determination must have shown. Before I could even open my mouth, his former assistant Julia embraced me in a tight hug. "Cassie? I can't believe it," she said, dabbing her eyes delicately with a monogrammed handkerchief. "First the accident, now this?" My ears perked up, senses on high alert. "Accident?" I asked. "You mean when he passed before?" Julia nodded, confusion knitting her brows. "Yes, last year. The awful car wreck out on River Road. I assumed you knew. They brought his body in and—" She trailed off with a shudder. The puzzle pieces clicked into place. There had been no tragic construction accident like Marcella declared, which meant she deliberately kept Silas's first death from me, allowing her to stage this second funeral circus under the guise of recent widowhood. Bile rose in my throat as the ugliness of her ploy came into sharp focus. By hiding Silas's initial passing, she ensured the steady flow of child support she orchestrated from my account, for Eli, right into her scheming hands. I thought I was providing for my boy, but in reality, that witch likely used every cent to fund her plush new lifestyle. As fury and disgust overwhelmed me, I managed to choke out the other burning question. "The baby, is he really Silas's?" Julia shook her head before lowering her voice to barely a whisper. "Rumor has it they were already separated when she got pregnant, but once Silas passed, she saw her opportunity." I reeled at this, the final crushing blow. In addition to using my son, this harpy had trapped my ex-in-laws with the ultimate manipulation, a motherless grandchild to dote on. Even in death, she ensured Silas's fortune would fund her through the boy's college years and beyond. Meanwhile, she attempted to erase my Eli completely, threatening his only connection to Silas's family and inheritance. Overcome with anger, I stormed out of the office, nearly knocking over a vase of lilies sent in loving memory of Silicon Valley's most ambitious lawyer. As I arrived on Marcella's manicured block, I felt containing my rage would be impossible. Sure enough, the sight of her smug smile enraged me as she rocked on the front porch with the baby nestled against her. Not today, witch, I thought. The next hour was a satisfying blur of unleashed fury as I confronted her with all I had learned. With each newly exposed truth, I relished the growing panic in her eyes. Her defeat was palpable, as I declared I would be filing a lawsuit first thing Monday morning to settle this injustice once and for all. "You can slither back into whatever hole you crawled from now," I spat as I turned to leave. "You'll never see another dime meant for my son." I walked away with strides full of renewed purpose. For justice, for Eli's legacy, and for the truth Silas deserved. This victory left the sweet taste of revenge on my lips at last. And tomorrow, the real fight would begin. I arrived at the lawyer's office fueled by caffeinated determination, clutching folders full of paperwork I had gathered over the weekend. Bank statements, legal documents, Marcella's venomous threats. I was armed and ready for battle. The meeting started smoothly as I recounted my discoveries. The lawyer, Mr. Silverstein, listened thoughtfully, periodically adjusting his thin-rimmed glasses. Finally, he cleared his throat and leaned forward. "While these revelations about Marcella's past schemes are certainly concerning, without concrete evidence of current illegal activities, I'm afraid there's little ground for a case," he said gently. My eager smile faded. "What? She manipulated a dead man's estate for her own gain." I slid the threatening SMS messages across his desk. "And she's clearly planning to deny my son his rightful inheritance." Mr. Silverstein grimaced as he perused Marcella's texts, gloating about securing power of attorney. "While distasteful, her actions appear strategically within legal bounds," he said, "since you never married your son's claim." I cut him off, unable to contain my boiling frustration. So this witch can flaunt her schemes and lies, but I'm just supposed to sit and wait for her next underhanded attack? Sighing, Mr. Silverstein removed his glasses, rubbing his tired eyes. Without proof of actual fraud, we have no grounds for legal action. My best advice would be to wait it out. I slammed my hands on the desk, trembling with anger as I rose. Unacceptable. My son's future is at stake thanks to that soulless, money-grubbing... A knock interrupted my tirade. The door creaked open to reveal Julia, her eyes wide with shock. Sorry to interrupt, but Cassie, you must come quickly. Julia cried breathlessly. I just overheard Marcella on the phone with a strange man. They mentioned documents, custody. My heart seized in my chest. Marcella was already striking with her next scheme. I grabbed my bag, my mind reeling. Did you hear anything else? I asked. Julia shook her head apologetically. As we turned to rush out, Mr. Silverstein handed me a business card. Call me immediately if you uncover solid evidence of wrongdoing, he instructed firmly. With concrete proof, we can build a case. We sped back to Julia's office, where she recounted the bits of conversation she had overheard. As she mimicked the man's slimy tone, bragging about eliminating obstacles, my blood ran cold. This was beyond manipulation. Marcella had crossed over into criminality, and my son was the intended target. We had to catch her red-handed and fast. As Julia made calls checking databases, reality sank in. My days of civility were over. I had to stop reacting and take action. For Eli's sake, it was time to set the trap and play dirty. The pieces clicked into place with chilling precision. Bank statements I had discovered showed large, frequent transfers to a business associate named Derek. A quick online search of his profile made his line of work clear. And baiting this snake out of hiding would surely expose Marcella right along with him. As I plotted out the trap, adrenaline flooded my veins. By weaponizing Marcella's own ugly tactics against her, I would finally take back control. For the sake of Eli's future, her cruelty would be repaid in kind at last. This ended now. The annual Silicon Valley Law Gala was the perfect backdrop for my trap. I had discovered Marcella would be here tonight schmoozing potential investors for her new lifestyle brand. Bile rose in my throat, imagining her peddling leggings and false widowhood in the same breath. Well, not anymore. Tonight her lies would be exposed for the world to see. I had chosen my bait carefully, luring the ominous Derek to a shadowy rendezvous with the promise of a payoff. My eyewitness waited strategically behind a marble column, ready to catch every incriminating exchange on video. All that remained was springing the confrontation I had planned, so Marcella's facade would come crumbling down in front of the cream of the crop attendees. I spotted her across the ballroom, draped in an ostentatious black dress, already working the room with dramatic flair. Time to steal the spotlight, I thought, striding towards her, with rage burning through my veins. Why, Cassie, what a surprise, Marcella drawled, her expression morphing from warm charm to icy hatred in an instant. I'm terribly sorry, but this is a private event. Now run along. The circle of executives glanced between us, curiosity piqued by the palpable tension. Perfect. Private event, I scoffed. More like hunting ground for your next victim right under the guise of entrepreneurship? Have you handed out catalogs showcasing your full web of lies yet? Flashes of anger and fear crossed Marcella's face. Why, I never. Someone escort this mad woman out at once. But her feigned outrage merely made me laugh. Come now, Marcy, why don't you share with these kind folks how you conned my grieving ex-in-laws? I swept my arm towards the captive audience, leverage exactly as I had planned. Tell them how you seduced my husband away and then faked widowhood twice over for access to his millions. The watching crowd murmured uncomfortably. Before Marcella could respond, her cell phone rang. With trembling hands she answered, breathless fear filling her eyes as she listened. After a long pause, she choked out, You told me this would work, that no one would ever find out. I grinned wickedly, crossing my arms. Trouble with your partners in crime, I take it? Marcella stared at me wild-eyed as I continued. Did you really think we wouldn't uncover your shady plans with that brute Derek to steal my son's inheritance? Right on cue, Julia stepped forward, clutching her phone, still recording Derek's incriminating exchange. We have it all right here, Julia declared. Your threats, lies, and hired thugs caught discussing falsifying custody documents. Marcella collapsed to her knees as her world crumbled around her, the damning evidence now on full display for all to witness at last. I leaned down, my tone icy. Your games end here. You knew exactly what you stood to gain from my family's loss, and you didn't care who you destroyed in the process. Well, now the spotlight is on you. Satisfaction washed over me seeing her cowering and exposed. As security approached, Marcella searched the crowd, desperately seeking an ally, but she found only looks of disgust reflecting back at her. The bitter taste of retribution was even sweeter than I imagined. Finally, I had justice for Eli, for Silas's legacy, and above all, for the truth. Marcella's web of deception lay in ruins all around her. Now it was her turn to lose everything, and I would ensure she answered for her crimes if it was the last thing I did. The weeks following Marcella's public shaming blended together in a flurry of legal motions and strategy sessions. With evidence of her shady dealings now on full display, the battle had shifted to the courtroom. I sat calmly smoothing my dress suit as Mr. Leah Silverstein paced, reviewing our plan of attack. With the video footage clearly implicating Derek, Marcella's remaining credibility is questionable at best, he affirmed. Our case highlighting her deceit around Silas's estate and inheritance rights is quite strong. I nodded, steeling myself as we entered the imposing courtroom. Marcella sat at the defendant's table, the hollows of her cheeks betraying her normally glamorous visage. Her bloodshot eyes narrowed to slits as I held her glare with steely determination. The fantasies of my victory had kept me energized throughout sleepless nights. Today, sweet justice would finally be served. The room fell silent as the judge entered. For 3 tense hours, Mr. Silverstein presented an impenetrable wall of evidence showcasing every manipulating half-truth and bold-faced lie Marcella had spun to profit off Silas's tragic death. Phone records proved her secrecy around his actual passing. Bank statements exposed money funneled from my personal accounts straight into her pockets, and most damning, Derek's own written testimonial implicated Marcella as the true mastermind behind the plot to erase my son's claim. I watched Marcella's haughty facade slowly crack and crumble as the weight of truth exposed her deceit. As Mr. Silverstein turned the floor over to her, she sat frozen for a long minute before stammering weakly in self-defense. But her sputtering lies stood no chance now. She had no choice but to confess haltingly to concealing Silas's initial death. A gasp rippled through the gallery at this admission. When pressed about her motivation by the judge, Marcella dissolved into hysterical sobs about debts and bad investments. My lip curled in disgust, hearing her still make excuses rather than take accountability. After she composed her sniveling, the judge turned to Mr. Silverstein. In lieu of this compelling evidence, I am prepared to rule on the matter of Silas Gray's estate and inheritance rights. Please approach. This was it, the moment that had kept me fighting through countless ruthless attacks. Marcella paled as we stood next to her, awaiting the verdict that would decide my son's fate. On the matter of Silas Gray's estate, full rights shall be granted to his named next of kin, his son Elijah. My breath caught as joyful shock washed over me. Additionally, Miss Marcella Pierce will hereby repay all misallocated funds and forfeit any custody claim over the child. I blinked back grateful tears as justice rained down at long last, stripping the woman who had taken so much from my son for her own gain. The rest was a dizzying rush of celebratory hugs and phone calls to Eli, who giggled gleefully at the news. Meanwhile, Marcella sat frozen, the judge's gavel signaling her defeat. I watched as bailiffs approached to apprehend her on formal fraud charges tied to years of financial deception. As they led her shambling body past me, I stood tall, finally seeing her for the powerless coward she was, without her web of lies for protection. You forget who you were dealing with, I said coldly. Did you really think you could threaten my child, Silas's child, without consequence? As she disappeared from view for good, I let the sweet taste of revenge wash over me at last. With her poisonous shadow now banished from our lives forever, Eli and I could finally embrace the bright future that was rightfully his. Justice indeed prevailed. In the weeks following the trial, I was able to breathe freely for the first time in years. Marcella was sentenced to 3 years behind bars, a satisfactory reckoning for the havoc she had wreaked on countless lives. The duty of tying up legal loose ends around Silas's estate fell to my trusted advisor, Julia. As we sat signing paperwork, joy overwhelmed me, seeing Eli's inheritance fully secured at last by his rightful guardians, Silas's parents, Edna and Richard. A soft knock interrupted us. Edna entered, her usual haughty aura replaced by something resembling humility. "Cassie, I can't thank you enough for what you did," she said haltingly. Richard nodded behind her, his eyes glistening. We were so blinded. We never imagined Marcella was manipulating us that entire time. I studied their faces intently. The past could never be erased, but perhaps this ordeal had opened their eyes to what mattered most now. Family. I reached across the table and squeezed Edna's hand gently. "Let's focus on the future for Eli's sake." Richard and Edna both smiled through tears. For all our rocky history, we shared an unexpected bond now as guardians of Silas's legacy. Over lunch, we laughed, reminiscing about a young, vibrant Silas, the man we all loved in different ways. Edna even shared baby pictures I had never seen before. A warmth filled me, realizing that perhaps some good could come from even the darkest storms. Later at home, while tucking Eli into bed, I decided to share part of the story that had led us here. I told an age-appropriate version, not mentioning Marcella by name but focusing on themes of honesty, family, and karma. His big brown eyes widened with childlike awe as I spoke. "So that mean Lady lied? Is that why you had to go fight the bad guys in court?" I kissed Eli on the forehead, my heart swelling with pride. "Yes, my smart boy, but now the truth came out, just like it always does, and that mean Lady can't ever bother us again." Eli giggled and squeezed his stuffed dog, the one Silas had given him years ago. "Well, I'm glad, 'cause now we get to stay with Grandma and Grandpa and inherit Daddy's big building downtown." I had to laugh at his innocent understanding of the legal complexity, but in his eyes shone the optimism and hope I had fought so hard to protect. Over the next year, life took on a beautiful rhythm I had scarcely allowed myself to imagine. Weekday breakfasts with Grandma and Grandpa, Sunday picnics reminiscing about Silas while Eli played, laughter, joy, and new memories bonding us together after so much loss. The only dark cloud still lingering was my regular visit to a maximum security prison to stare Marcella down as she crumbled mentally and physically under the weight of her crimes. To some it may have seemed cruel satisfaction, but having her fate sealed behind those unforgiving walls gave me peace of mind. Soon the anniversary of Silas's death arrived, a bittersweet milestone marking the closing of a painful chapter. We gathered as a family at his grave, each placing a rose while Eli babbled happily about his daddy. I gasped as Eli suddenly froze, pointing behind us all starry-eyed. "Look, it's Daddy," he squealed. "Hi, Daddy." We all turned with a start, seeing nothing but a glowing sunbeam breaking through the clouds. But somehow, I knew in that moment, Silas's spirit swirled around us, and through Eli's eyes, he witnessed the justice, closure, and family his memory deserved. Finally, we could all rest peacefully, thanks to the truth rising at last. The past was finally laid to rest on this sacred ground. Another year slipped by, filled with healing and closure. Our family grew closer than I ever could have imagined. Eli flourished with the love and support of two doting grandparents, and I found meaning embracing my role protecting Silas's legacy. But lingering darkness still occupied my thoughts. Marcella deserved to rot in prison, yet her continued existence so close by prevented me from ever fully moving on. The time had come for a fresh start, far away from the ghosts of past betrayal. My decision made, I gently broke the news to Edna and Richard over family dinner. Edna lowered her fork, eyes glistening with emotion. "Oh, Cassie, must you really go?" she asked softly. "These years with you and Eli have meant the world to us." I squeezed her hand, my own eyes welling up. "I'll forever be grateful for how you welcomed Eli, but too many memories haunt me here." I glanced at Eli playing happily. He deserves to grow up free from the shadows of his father's past. Richard cleared his throat gruffly. "We understand, dear. A clean slate is what you both need, but please, let us help set you up so Eli's future is secure." My heart swelled at this gesture. The ultimate display of love for the grandson they almost lost. That means everything. Thank you both, truly. Over the next few weeks, I tied up loose ends while Edna and Richard handled real estate and financial logistics. The day of our move finally arrived, bittersweet yet brimming with hope. Edna fussed over Eli, sneaking cookies and treats into his luggage when she thought I wasn't looking. As we stood at the front door for final goodbyes, the weight of the moment sank in. Edna pulled me into a crushing hug. "Promise you'll let us visit very soon?" she asked tearfully. "Maybe for Eli's next birthday?" I smiled through my own tears. "Of course, you're both welcome anytime. Take good care of Richard, okay?" Edna chuckled wetly with a wink. After one final check that Eli was securely buckled in his car seat, we all exchanged final hugs. As I shifted the car into drive, Eli cried, "Bye, Grandma! Bye, Grandpa!" while frantically waving his little hand. We drove in silence for a while, fields and farms zipping past outside. I breathed deeply, déjà vu washing over me from that pivotal drive to Silas's second funeral years ago. So much life had happened since. "Where are we going, Mommy?" Eli suddenly piped up from the back seat. I smiled at his bright eyes in the rearview mirror. "We're going to start a new adventure, baby. New city, new house. Doesn't that sound exciting?" Eli nodded enthusiastically. "Will I make new friends? Oh, and visit Daddy, too?" My heart fluttered hearing his innocent understanding. "Yes, my sweet boy, all of that and more. A fresh start for you and me." I clicked on the radio as a beloved song came on, the same one played at Silas's wedding during our first dance. My pulse quickened at the serendipity. Glancing in the mirror again, I was struck by Eli's resemblance to his father, his same kind eyes and grin. Silas's presence filled the space around us, enveloping me in warmth and propelling us onwards, towards the new memories we would make, carrying his spirit in our hearts forever. The past was finally laid to rest. Now nothing but open road and bright skies ahead, ready for our new beginning.
The bass from the speakers vibrates through my bones as I watch my best friend raise her champagne glass, commanding attention from the crowd gathered in my apartment. My birthday celebration feels perfect. The warm glow of string lights, the comfortable buzz of wine, familiar faces everywhere. Kimberly's silver dress catches the light as she moves, and I smile, already anticipating her usual heartfelt toast. "Everyone, I have an announcement to make." Her voice rings clear above the music. My chest swells with affection. Of course, she'd use my birthday to say something special about our friendship. 15 years of being inseparable does that to people. I catch Mateo's eye across the room. He raises his eyebrows playfully, probably thinking the same thing. The music dims, and the casual chatter fades to expectant silence. The wellness app has been approved for Series A funding. Kimberly's voice trembles with excitement. $10 million. I just got the call an hour ago. My glass nearly slips from my fingers. The wellness app. Our wellness app. The one we'd spent 18 months developing together in my spare bedroom, fueled by coffee and dreams. Except, she'd said I, not we. The room erupts in cheers. Someone pops another bottle of champagne. Through the blur of bodies rushing to congratulate her, I see Kimberly's face glowing with triumph. Not once does she look my way. "Oh my God, Kim, that's incredible. You're going to be the next big thing in tech. I always knew you had it in you." The words swirl around me like smoke, choking me. My sister Gemma appears at my side, her hand finding mine. "Fatima," she whispers. "What's happening?" I shake my head, unable to speak. The room suddenly feels too hot, too crowded. My birthday decorations mock me with their cheerfulness. On the wall, there's still that photo of Kimberly and me from last summer, arms around each other, grinning like idiots after our first successful beta test. "Kim!" I finally manage to call out, my voice stronger than I feel. "Can we talk for a minute?" She turns, and for a split second, something flickers across her face. Guilt? Fear? But it's gone so fast, I might have imagined it. "Of course, babe. Just give me a sec. Jarvis wants to discuss next steps." Jarvis, the investor we'd pitched to together 3 weeks ago. He's watching me now with careful neutrality, champagne untouched in his hand. I retreat to my kitchen, gripping the counter until my knuckles turn white. The granite is cool against my palms, anchoring me as my world tilts sideways. Through the doorway, I watch Kimberly work the room like she was born for it. Maybe she was. "You okay?" Mateo appears beside me, his presence steady and grounding. "That was unexpected." I laugh, but it comes out hollow. That's one word for it. I pull out my phone, hands shaking as I open my emails. Yesterday's correspondence with our development team is gone. Our shared drive, access denied. Even our Instagram account password has been changed. I need everyone to leave, I whisper. Mateo squeezes my shoulder. I'll handle it. 20 minutes later, my apartment is empty except for scattered glasses and deflating balloons. Kimberly left without saying goodbye, her perfume lingering like a ghost. My phone buzzes with a text from her. We'll talk tomorrow. Promise. Just had to strike while the iron was hot. Love you. I sink onto my couch, surrounded by the debris of celebration turned funeral. My fingers find the USB drive in my desk drawer, the one with all our original code, our late-night brainstorming sessions, our shared dreams backed up. But when I plug it in, the files are corrupted. She's thought of everything. Another text lights up my phone, this time from an unknown number. Saw the announcement. Thought you should know. Kim's been meeting with the board for months. Solo. Sorry. The room spins as pieces click into place. Her sudden business trips, the changed passwords, the delayed meetings. While I coded our future, she coded my erasure. I grab the nearest champagne bottle and hurl it against the wall. It shatters spectacularly, leaving a dark stain like a Rorschach test of betrayal. In its dripping pattern, I see 15 years of friendship dissolving into nothing. My phone buzzes again. Kimberly's face lights up my screen, her caller ID photo showing us both laughing at some forgotten joke. I let it ring until the screen goes dark. Tomorrow she'll have explanations. Tomorrow she'll try to smooth this over with practiced words and calculated tears. Tomorrow she'll learn exactly who she's underestimated. But tonight, I sit in the wreckage of my 31st birthday, watching champagne drip down my wall, and plan how to take back everything she stole. Morning light filters through the wine-stained wall, casting a sickly purple shadow across my workspace. I've been staring at my development notebook for hours, fingers tracing the familiar loops of Kimberly's handwriting in the margins. Love this, she'd scrawled next to my original algorithm. You're brilliant, F. My brilliance. Her success. My phone has been buzzing since dawn. I silence another call from her and open my laptop instead. The wellness app's landing page loads, and there she is. Kimberly's face beaming under the headline, Visionary Founder Secures Major Investment. The article mentions her innovative solo venture and unique vision. I scroll through comments congratulating her until my vision blurs. A message pops up from Mateo. Check your email, now. The attachment is a series of screenshots, private messages between Kimberly and Jarvis from 3 months ago. My stomach lurches as I read, F is great with code, but she's not ready for this level. Too idealistic. The board needs someone who understands business reality. Agreed. Better to make the split now. Clean break. Already working on isolating her contributions. Will look like natural project drift. A sound escapes me. Half laugh, half sob. Natural project drift. Is that what she calls systematic erasure? My doorbell rings. Through the peephole, I see Kimberly shifting nervously, clutching 2 coffee cups. For a moment, I'm transported back to countless mornings of coding sessions fueled by her perfect lattes. My hand hovers over the doorknob. Fatima? Her voice is muffled. Please, let me explain. I open the door but block the entrance. She looks immaculate as always, not a hair out of place. The coffee she holds out like a peace offering has my usual order scrawled on it. You've got 3 minutes. I was going to tell you everything. She starts. The board. They had concerns about split leadership. They wanted a clear vision, one voice. I fought for us, but... Funny how your fight ended with you getting everything and me getting nothing, she flinches. It's not nothing. I'm offering you a senior developer position. Full benefits, competitive salary. To work for you? The laugh that tears from my throat sounds foreign. To help you profit from my own idea? Our idea. She corrects softly. And you'd be valued. Like you valued 15 years of friendship? Her perfectly maintained facade cracks. That's not fair. This is business, Fatima. Sometimes we have to make hard choices. We? I pull out my phone and read Jarvis's messages aloud. Her face drains of color. Where did you get those? Does it matter? They're your words, Kim. Your choices. Your reality. She sets the coffees down, hands trembling slightly. Look, I know you're hurt, but this doesn't have to be the end. Think about it. You're amazing with code, but you hate the business side. The networking, the politics. This way, we both get to do what we're best at. What I'm best at, I repeat slowly, is trusting people who don't deserve it. Something shifts in her eyes, a flash of the old Kimberly, the one who held me through breakups and celebrated my smallest victories. Please don't do anything rash. This could still work. Like how you disabled my access? Corrupted my backup files? That kind of rash? She takes a step back. That was protection. Legal recommended. Get out. Fatima. Get out. The coffees topple as she retreats, spilling across my welcome mat. I watch the liquid seep into the fiber, staining it dark like secrets finally surfacing. My phone buzzes. Zuriel, my old coding buddy from grad school. Heard what happened. Still have the original GitHub repositories. Want to see something interesting? My hands shake as I type. Show me everything. Another message from Mateo follows. Meeting set with Reagan Wilson tomorrow. She's interested in your side of the story. I sink to the floor, back against the door, and open my development notebook again. Behind Kimberly's effusive notes, my original code remains. The foundation she built her empire on. The proof she thought she'd erased. The coffee seeps under the door, touching my feet. I don't move. Let it stain. Let it remind me that some marks don't wash away with pretty words and practiced apologies. I text Zuriel back. Time to show everyone who really wrote the story she's telling. The reply is instant. Already working on it. Hope she backed up her lies better than she backed up your code. A strange calm settles over me as I close my notebook. Kimberly taught me about business reality today. Time to teach her about consequences. My heart pounds as Zuriel's fingers fly across his keyboard, lines of code scrolling past faster than I can process. We're huddled in his cramped home office, the air thick with coffee and possibility. 3 monitors display different aspects of the app's architecture. My architecture. There, he mutters, pointing to a timestamp. Look at the commit history. I lean forward, squinting at the screen. That's my original authentication protocol. She barely changed it. More than that. Zuriel pulls up another window. The entire user interface flow. It's your work. She just rebranded it. Changed variable names, added some comments. Amateur hour. A hollow laugh escapes me. Guess she was too busy networking to learn proper coding. Wait. He freezes, cursor hovering over a particular section. This is interesting. What? These data handling protocols? They're not up to privacy standards. Like, not even close. He glances at me. Didn't you two have long discussions about user privacy? The memory hits like a punch to the gut. Kimberly and me arguing past midnight about data protection. She'd called me paranoid, but eventually agreed to my stricter protocols. Or so I thought. She stripped out all the safety measures. I whisper. Why would she? My phone buzzes. Mateo. Meeting with Reagan in 30. You ready? I check my reflection in Zuriel's window. Dark circles under my eyes, hair hastily pulled back. I look exactly like someone who's been up for 36 hours hunting digital ghosts. Keep digging, I tell Zuriel. I need everything you can find. Reagan's office feels too large, too exposed. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook the city where, somewhere, Kimberly is probably celebrating her triumph. Reagan herself radiates careful neutrality as she reviews the documents on her tablet. These allegations are serious, she says finally. Privacy violations, intellectual property theft. I have proof. My voice sounds stronger than I feel. The original code, the development timeline, and a personal relationship that clouds everything. Reagan sets down her tablet. The board will say you're bitter, jealous. They'll paint you as the desperate ex-friend trying to sabotage a successful woman. But the evidence might not matter. Her eyes soften. Fatima, I've seen this before. Tech is still a boys' club. They love nothing more than women tearing each other down. It validates their worst assumptions. My throat tightens. So I should just let her win? I'm saying choose your battlefield carefully. She leans forward. The privacy violations, that's your angle. Users don't care about who wrote what code. But their personal data? That gets attention. My phone buzzes again. Zuriel. Found something big. The app is selling location data to third parties, without consent. The room suddenly feels colder. She's not just stealing from me, I murmur. She's stealing from everyone who trusts the app. Reagan watches me process this. Now you're thinking clearly, but remember, once you start this, there's no going back. Not for you, not for her. I'm about to respond when another message appears. Gemma. Kim's at Mom's house. She's telling them her side of the story. The betrayal hits in waves. First my work, now my family. I need to go. I stand abruptly, but I'll be in touch. The drive to my parents' house is a blur. By the time I pull up, Kimberly's car is gone, but the damage is done. Mom meets me at the door, her expression a mix of concern and disappointment. She says you're trying to hurt her because you're jealous. Mom says softly, that you always wanted more credit than you deserved. And you believe her? I don't know what to believe. She touches my cheek. You both were like daughters to me. Now everything's broken. I pull away. She broke it. Not me. Back in my car, tears finally come. Through blurred vision, I text Zuriel. How fast can you document the privacy violations? His response is immediate. Give me 48 hours. Want to make it bulletproof. Another message pops up, this time from Mateo. Whatever you need, I'm here. I start the car, hands steady despite everything. Kimberly thought she could erase me from my own story. Instead, she wrote herself into a corner. My phone rings. It's Reagan. I've been thinking, she says when I answer. There's someone you should meet. He's had similar experiences with Jarvis and the board. Who? Let's just say he knows where all the bodies are buried. Dinner tomorrow? I watch the sun set over the city, painting everything in shades of possibility and revenge. Text me the details. Sometimes the most dangerous person isn't the one who takes everything. It's the one left with nothing to lose. The restaurant Reagan chose screams old money, all dark wood and hushed conversations. I smooth my blazer, feeling underdressed despite Mateo's assurances before I left. He'd insisted on helping me prepare, like this was a battle requiring armor. Maybe it is. Reagan waves from a corner booth where she sits with a man I recognize from tech magazines. Marcus, former CEO of 3 successful startups, now mysteriously pursuing other interests. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. Fatima, he says, standing to shake my hand. I've heard interesting things about your situation. I slide into the booth, hyper-aware of other diners who might recognize us. How much do you know? Enough to know Jarvis hasn't changed his playbook. Marcus signals the waiter. Scotch? Neat. You'll want one too. I order wine instead. Reagan watches the exchange with careful attention. 2 years ago, Marcus continues, I had a promising medical tech company. Jarvis came in with funding and big promises. 6 months later, I was out. Sound familiar? My hand tightens around my water glass. How? Death by 1,000 cuts, board meetings I wasn't invited to, crucial emails I never received. Then suddenly my COO, my friend of 10 years, was the new CEO. He takes a long sip of scotch. Your friend Kimberly? She's been meeting with Jarvis since January, not March. The timeline shift hits me like vertigo. January, when we were still pulling all-nighters, when she was still bringing me coffee and calling me brilliant. How do you know? He slides his phone across the table. Photos appear. Kimberly and Jarvis at restaurants, coffee shops. In one, they're laughing over drinks. The date stamp, January 15th. I keep tabs on Jarvis. Marcus explains. Old habits. My voice catches. That was the day I finished the core algorithm. Reagan leans forward. Fatima, there's more. The privacy violations you found? They're not bugs. They're features. What? Data harvesting is the real business model, Marcus says quietly. The wellness app is just the delivery system. Jarvis has buyers lined up. Insurance companies, employers, marketing firms. They're not investing in wellness. They're investing in surveillance. The wine arrives. I drink half of it in one swallow, mind racing. All those late-night debates with Kimberly about user privacy suddenly shift into focus. She wasn't just dismissing my concerns. She was actively hiding the truth. I can't let this happen, I say. Those users trust us. Trust me. That's why we're here. Reagan's voice is gentle but firm. We can help you expose this, but timing is crucial. Once Jarvis realizes you know. My phone buzzes. Gemma. Emergency. Call now. Excuse me, I mumble, sliding out of the booth. In the restaurant's elegant bathroom, I call my sister. They're moving the launch up, Gemma says without preamble. Kim just told Mom it's happening next week. She was bragging about some big corporate contracts already signed. My free hand grips the marble counter. How did you find out? I'm at Mom's. Kim's here again, playing the victim. Gemma hesitates. She's crying about how betrayed she feels by you. Mom's completely falling for it. Something inside me hardens. Let her cry. Next week, everyone will know exactly who betrayed whom. Back at the table, Marcus is showing Reagan something on his tablet. They both look up as I approach. Change of plans, I announce. The launch is next week. We need to move faster. Marcus nods slowly. Might be better. Less time for them to cover their tracks. He pulls out a business card, writes something on the back. Call this number tomorrow. Ask for Diane. She's a reporter who's been investigating Jarvis for months. She'll want to hear your story. And the privacy violations? I'll have everything documented by Monday, Reagan promises. But Fatima? Are you sure? This goes beyond Kimberly now. You'll be taking on serious players. My phone lights up with a text from Kimberly. Miss you. Wish we could talk this through. Family isn't the same without you. I turn the phone face down. They took my work, my friendship, and now they're trying to take my family. All while planning to exploit people's trust for profit. I meet their eyes. I'm not just sure. I'm ready. Marcus raises his glass. Then let's talk strategy. Hours later, I sit in my car, staring at the restaurant's elegant facade. My notes from dinner feel like ammunition, heavy in my bag. Tomorrow, I'll call Diane. Tomorrow, I'll start the countdown to destruction. My phone buzzes one last time. Mateo. Whatever happens next week, I've got your back. I start the engine, something like peace settling over me. Kimberly taught me about betrayal. Time to teach her about consequences. The tech conference buzzes with artificial enthusiasm, hundreds of people networking under fluorescent lights. I adjust my press badge, courtesy of Diane, and try to look like I belong. Somewhere in this crowd, Kimberly is preparing for her keynote speech about the app's revolutionary approach to wellness. You don't have to be here, Mateo murmurs beside me. Diane has everything she needs for the story. I need to see this. I scan the crowd. The words die in my throat. Kimberly stands 30 feet away, surrounded by admirers. She's wearing the green dress I helped her pick for her sister's wedding, the one that makes her look softened somehow, more human. For a moment, muscle memory almost makes me wave. Then I see Jarvis appear beside her, his hand possessive on her lower back. They share a look I recognize, the same conspiratorial gleam I used to see directed at me. Fatima? Mateo touches my arm. Maybe we should... Well, this is unexpected. Reagan materializes between us, her voice tight. You need to leave, now. What? Why? Because, she glances over her shoulder. Jarvis just added a last-minute panel about intellectual property rights in tech. Guess who's moderating? My stomach drops. You? I tried to back out, but... She meets my eyes. They know Fatima. About our dinner with Marcus. About Diane. They're going to paint this as corporate espionage. The room tilts slightly. That's ridiculous. I have proof? They have proof too. Documents showing you accessed company servers after your partnership dissolved. Emails to competitors. I never... Then it hits me. They planted evidence. Reagan nods grimly. Leave before the panel starts. Give us time to strategize. But as we turn to go, Kimberly's voice cuts through the crowd. Fatima? Oh my God, is that you? She's moving toward us, camera phones tracking her progress. Every head turns to watch the approaching storm. Don't, Mateo warns, but I'm already rooted in place. Kimberly reaches us, her smile camera ready. I'm so glad you came. I was just telling everyone how much you inspired the app's early development. The calculated precision of it, the careful wording, the public setting, makes my blood boil. Early development? Is that what we're calling it now? Of course, your input was so valuable. She touches my arm like we're still friends, like she hasn't spent months erasing me. Actually, I'd love for you to join the panel. Share your perspective on collaboration in tech. A trap wrapped in kindness and tied with manipulation. Classic Kim. Interesting timing, I say quietly. Right when Diane's story is about to break. Something flickers behind her smile. I don't know what you're talking about. The data harvesting? The privacy violations? Any of that ring a bell? She steps closer, voice dropping. Don't do this. Please, you don't understand what's at stake. I understand perfectly. You sold out our vision to become Jarvis's puppet. No. Her fingers dig into my arm. You don't. They have everything, Fatima. Every drunk text you ever sent me. Every time you bent coding regulations to meet deadlines. Every shortcut we took together. If I go down, the threat hangs between us. In the corner of my eye, I see Jarvis watching, his expression smug. You're breaking my heart, I whisper. Again. For a second, real pain crosses her face. I never wanted... Ms. Sims? An assistant appears. 5 minutes until your keynote. Kimberly straightens, mask sliding back into place. Think carefully about your next move, she says. Family protects family, remember? She walks away, crowds parting before her. I stand frozen until Mateo's voice breaks through. We need to go. Now. In the parking lot, my hands shake so badly I drop my keys. Mateo picks them up but doesn't hand them over. I'll drive, he says. Your place or mine? Neither. I pull out my phone, finding Zuriel's number. We need a secure location. They're going to try to access my devices, plant more evidence. Fatima. Mateo hesitates. Are you sure you want to keep fighting? The cost is already too high to back down. I meet his worried gaze. She just threatened to destroy me, Mateo. She's not my family anymore. She's not even the person I thought I knew. My phone buzzes. Diane. Story's ready. Say the word. Another text follows from an unknown number. Interesting panel coming up. Shame about those server logs. Better lawyer up. I close my eyes, feeling the weight of what comes next. Take me to Zuriel's. We need to move faster than they can bury us. Mateo starts the car, and we leave the conference behind. In my mind, I see Kimberly taking the stage, smiling her perfect smile, selling her stolen dreams. Tomorrow, that smile will cost her everything. Zuriel's basement hums with servers, the blue LED lights casting everything in a surreal glow. I haven't slept in 36 hours, surviving on coffee and rage. Mateo dozed off hours ago on the ancient couch, but his presence steadies me even in sleep. They're good. Zuriel mutters, fingers dancing across keyboards. Every time I counter one false trail, 3 more appear. They've got someone skilled. I lean closer to his screens, watching lines of code blur together. Can you prove the evidence is planted? Maybe, but he hesitates. There's something else. Something weird in the app's new code push. My phone buzzes. Gemma. Mom's in the hospital. Panic attack after Kim's visit. Come home, please. The room spins. I grab the desk to steady myself. Fatima? Zuriel turns. What's wrong? I can't. My voice cracks. I have to go. The hospital corridor stretches endlessly. When I finally find my mom's room, Kimberly is already there, holding my mother's hand. Because of course she is. Oh, honey. Mom reaches for me with her free hand. I'm fine. Just got myself worked up. About what? I remain in the doorway, watching Kimberly's perfectly constructed concern. All this fighting. Mom's voice trembles. Kim was telling me about the legal troubles coming. Baby, what have you gotten yourself into? Kimberly stands, smoothing her skirt. I should give you family time. You've seen to that already, haven't you? The words come out sharp enough to make Mom flinch. Fatima, she starts, but my phone rings. Zuriel. What? I step into the hallway. The code push. It's not just data harvesting. They're implementing something called Project Echo. Jesus, Fatima, it's basically spyware. Full device access, camera, microphone, everything. My blood runs cold. How many users? Current build shows 5 million downloads. Launch push goes live at midnight. 5 million people. 5 million lives about to be invaded. I turn back to the hospital room where Kimberly is whispering something to my mother. Their heads are close together, intimate as sisters. The sight burns. Do it, I tell Zuriel. Send everything to Diane, now. Fatima, wait. I hang up, stepping back into the room. Get out. Kimberly straightens. Your mother what she needs is to stop being your pawn. I move closer. Project Echo. Ring any bells? She pales slightly, but recovers quickly. I don't know what 5 million users, Kim. 5 million people who trusted us to help them, not spy on them. You don't understand the market pressures. Get out. She gathers her purse, mask cracking slightly. I did try to protect you, she whispers. You have no idea how much worse this could be. Is that what you tell yourself at night? She reaches the door, then turns. When this all comes out, remember, you chose this, not me. After she leaves, Mom starts crying. I sit on her bed, taking her hand. I don't understand, she sobs. You two were everything to each other. My phone buzzes repeatedly. Zuriel, Mateo, Diane, all at once. I silence it. Mom, I need you to listen. I squeeze her hand. Tomorrow things are going to get ugly. Really ugly. But I need you to remember that everything I'm doing is because some things matter more than friendship. More than family. Some things are just right or wrong. She studies my face. You sound like your father before his big cases. Dad taught me that, remember? Stand for something or fall for anything? A small smile. He'd be proud of you, whatever this is. My phone screen lights up with a text from Diane. Story goes live in 1 hour. Last chance to pull back. I think of Kimberly's threats, the planted evidence, my mother in this hospital bed. Then I think of 5 million people about to have their lives invaded without consent. No going back. I text Diane. Mom has drifted to sleep, her hand still in mine. My phone shows another message, this one from Kimberly. Final warning. I still have the power to stop this. I reply with 2 words. Too late. The hospital machines beep steadily as notifications start flooding in. Diane's story must be live. In my mind, I see Kimberly receiving the news. Her perfect world starting to crack. Let it break. Let it all come crashing down. Sometimes doing the right thing means burning every bridge you've ever built. Sometimes justice costs everything. I'm ready to pay the price. The tech company's lobby buzzes with chaos. Reporters cluster around the entrance, smartphones raised like weapons. Security guards look overwhelmed. Through the glass doors, I watch Jarvis hurry past, barking into his phone. "Ready?" Mateo asks beside me. I check my phone one last time. Diane's story has exploded across every major tech site. Wellness app scandal trends nationwide. The company's stock is in freefall. Ready. We push through the doors just as Kimberly emerges from an elevator, flanked by lawyers. She stops dead when she sees me. For a moment, we're frozen in tableau. Her designer suit against my simple blazer, her entourage versus my lone ally. "You've ruined everything," she says, voice carrying across the lobby. Phones turn to capture the confrontation. "No," I step forward. "You did that when you chose profit over privacy. When you decided 5 million people's trust meant nothing." "Trust?" She laughs, but it sounds hollow. "You want to talk about trust? Show them the rest, Fatima. Show them your drunk coding sessions, the corners we cut together. Already did." I hold up my phone. Full disclosure to the ethics board this morning. Every mistake, every shortcut, all documented. The difference is I'm willing to face consequences. Are you? Something flickers in her eyes. Fear, maybe recognition. A lawyer whispers in her ear, but she waves him off. "You think you're so righteous." She moves closer. "But I know you. The real you. The one who cried over every rejection, who needed me to believe in her. You're nothing without me." The words are designed to cut deep, to find old wounds. 6 months ago, they would have destroyed me. Now they feel like proof I made the right choice. "That's where you're wrong." My voice stays steady. "I'm not the scared girl you betrayed anymore. I'm the woman who stopped you from betraying millions." "Millions?" She steps closer, mask slipping. "I gave them what they wanted. A free app, perfect features, seamless experience. You think they care about privacy? Tell that to the parents whose children's locations were being tracked, the employees whose mental health data was sold to their bosses, the users whose cameras were about to be hijacked." The lobby falls silent. Even the reporters lower their phones, the weight of the violation sinking in. "You don't understand." Kimberly's voice cracks slightly. "The market demands—" "I understand perfectly." I pull out a USB drive, the one containing our original code, our original vision. "This is what we built, Kim. Before Jarvis, before the compromises. Remember? We were going to help people, not exploit them." Her eyes fix on the drive. For a moment, I see a flash of the friend I loved, the dreamer who stayed up late planning how to make the world better. "It's too late," she whispers. "No." I hold out the drive. "It's not. Tell the truth. All of it. Help us fix this." She reaches for the drive, fingers trembling. Behind her, Jarvis bursts from the elevator. "Don't you dare," he shouts. One word and every NDA triggers. "You'll never work in tech again." Kimberly freezes. I see the moment she makes her choice, watch her hand drop away. "I'm sorry," she says, but she's looking at Jarvis, not me. "No." I tuck the drive away. "You're not. Not yet." I turn to the reporters. "Full technical documentation of Project Echo has been sent to your offices. User data extraction protocols, unauthorized surveillance capabilities, corporate buyer lists, everything. Check your emails." "You can't," Jarvis starts. "I already did." I meet Kimberly's eyes one last time. "You taught me well. Always have a backup plan, right?" Her perfect composure cracks completely. "Fatima, please." "Miss Sims," reporters call out. "Did you knowingly implement spyware? Was user data sold without consent? Are the privacy violations systematic?" I leave her there, surrounded by questions she can't escape. Mateo follows me out into the sunlight, his hand finding mine. "You okay?" he asks softly. My phone buzzes with messages. Zuriel, Reagan, Mom, Gemma. A community I didn't lose after all. Behind us, through the glass doors, I watch Kimberly face the consequences of her choices. She looks small suddenly, stripped of her power and pretense. Yeah. I squeeze Mateo's hand. I am. We walk away as sirens approach. Probably the federal investigators Diane mentioned. My phone shows another notification. A message from a user support group forming for app victims. They're asking for help rebuilding something better, something honest. Want to get coffee? Mateo asks. Plan our next move? I look back one last time at the chaos we created. Sometimes justice doesn't feel like victory. Sometimes it just feels like truth finally breaking free. Coffee sounds perfect, I say. I have some ideas I want to run by you. This time, I'll build something on my own terms. No betrayals, no compromises, no shadows. Just truth, hard work, and the right people by my side. Rain drums against the coffee shop windows, but inside it's warm and familiar. This place has become our unofficial office. Mine, Mateo's, and Zuriel's. The same corner table where we first planned our new app, now covered in laptops and empty cups. Final user count? I ask, refreshing my screen. Just crossed 50,000. Zuriel grins. All organic growth, no marketing tricks. And every privacy protection we can build, Mateo adds, sliding a fresh latte toward me. My phone buzzes. A news alert about Jarvis pleading guilty to data trafficking charges. I swipe it away, but not before catching Kimberly's name in the headline. She turned state's evidence last week, finally choosing truth over loyalty. Speaking of privacy, Zuriel leans forward. You should see this. He turns his laptop, showing an email from an unfamiliar address. My heart stops when I read it. Is this real? Very. The biggest mental health advocacy group in the country wants to partner. They love our transparent approach, the user protections. They want to help scale it properly. Without compromising the core values, Mateo reads over my shoulder. That's huge. The bell above the door chimes. I look up to see my mother entering, shaking rain from her umbrella. She's been doing better since everything happened. Stronger somehow. Sorry I'm late, she says, pulling up a chair. But I brought something you need to see. She slides an envelope across the table. Inside is a letter, handwritten on expensive paper. I recognize the flowing script immediately. Kim? Mateo asks quietly. I nod, unfolding the pages. Dear Fatima, it begins. By the time you read this, I'll have finished my testimony. The prosecutors say it will help, but we both know that's not why I finally told the truth. I did it because watching you stand in that lobby, choosing right over easy, reminded me of who we used to be, who I used to be. My hands shake slightly as I read on. The thing is, you were never nothing without me. I was nothing without you. Without your moral compass, your stubborn integrity, your refusal to take the easy way out. I just couldn't admit it until I lost everything that didn't matter and found what did. You okay? Mateo touches my arm. I nod, continuing to read. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking for a response. I just want you to know that what you're building now, it's what we dreamed of creating before I lost my way. And watching you do it right, watching you help people the way we always planned, it hurts, but it heals too. The final paragraph makes my breath catch. You asked me once why I betrayed you. The truth is, I was terrified of failing, of being ordinary, of not mattering. But you showed me that mattering isn't about success or power. It's about choosing right when it costs you everything. You matter, Fatima. You always did. I just wish I'd been brave enough to matter the way you do. Mom squeezes my hand as I fold the letter. Outside, the rain has stopped, sunlight breaking through clouds. The advocacy group needs an answer. Zuriel reminds me gently. I look around the table, at Mateo's quiet support, Zuriel's brilliant loyalty, my mother's unwavering love. Then at my laptop, showing our app's simple interface. No hidden code, no secret agendas, just honest help for people who need it. Tell them yes, I say, but we do it our way. Complete transparency, user control over every data point, ethical oversight built into the corporate structure. It'll be harder, Zuriel warns. Slower growth, lower profits. Good. I open my laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Some things should be hard. Some things should cost us something. What are you working on? Mom peers at my screen. Response protocol for user privacy requests. Making sure everyone knows exactly what happens to their data every step of the way. Always the protector, she smiles. No. I think of Kimberly's letter. Of choices and consequences. Of integrity and its price. Just someone trying to matter in the right way. Mateo raises his coffee cup. To mattering. We all lift our cups, sunlight streaming through the windows, turning ordinary coffee into something golden. Something true. Sometimes betrayal teaches you who you really are. Sometimes losing everything shows you what you never lost at all. And sometimes the hardest path leads exactly where you needed to go. I begin to type, building safeguards into our digital world, one honest line of code at a time.